Chapter 2482. Thump. The third deacon's heart sank, waves of despair rising within him. Split up, run. The third steward struggled on his deathbed. With a loud roar, he took the lead and turned into thousands of clones that fled in all directions in a disorderly manner. On the other hand, Sien-Een and the others also unleashed their own abilities, fleeing at top speed. The demon elder snorted. "Don't even think of leaving." A shadow streaked across the sky, followed by screams. Meanwhile, outside the tribe, Su Yu and Yu Xiangwan, who were hiding, witnessed the earth-shattering change. Yu Xiangwan's expression was grim. "The demon faction's elder has come to this tribe. Our luck is really bad. Let's retreat," Yu Xiangwan said. With the current situation, it was uncertain if they could return alive, let alone reap the benefits. If they persisted any longer, they would be the fish. Unexpectedly, when Yu Xiangwan looked at Su Yu, he realized that Su Yu's expression was extremely calm. There was not a hint of surprise or panic on his face. "Brother Su, you already predicted this?" Yu Xiangwan did not believe it. Unless one could foresee the future, no matter how powerful one was, it was impossible to predict what would happen in front of them. Su Yu nodded. "Although it's different from what I expected, I guess." "What?" Yu Xiangwan stared deeply at Su Yu. If he did not know that Su Yu was not someone who boasted, he would have burst out laughing. Could Su Yu have predicted this situation from the start? Su Yu slowly got up, a smile on his lips as he looked toward the brightly lit tribe. "Brother Yu, your plan to reap the benefits will not work. Why not use my strength to turn the tide?" Yu Xiangwan's eyes turned. "You mean?" His pupils constricted and he gasped, shocked by Su Yu's plan. Su Yu calmly said, "The merit that I value has never been the killing of the merchants. No matter how great the merit of killing them is, it is limited. The merit that I want is to turn the tide and save all of them. Brother Yu, do you think it's more important for the faction to kill a few merchants or to preserve our own strength?" Yu Xiangwan did not hesitate. "Of course it's the latter. The number of strong fighters is the foundation of a faction. As for these merchants, even if they are left alone, it will not harm the faction's foundation." He understood what Su Yu meant. Even if the two of them could kill all the peddlers, the merit they would gain would not be comparable to saving some of the sect's important experts. "But Brother Su, how can you be so sure that our sect will encounter such a huge crisis?" This was what Yu Xiangwan could not understand the most. It was impossible for people to predict everything. Su Yu's eyes were filled with indifferent coldness as he said, "If they don't have a crisis, can't I create one?" Hearing this, Brother Yu understood immediately, and the way he looked at Su Yu changed completely. He was half startled and half in admiration. In the end, he laughed and said, "Brother Su has the demeanor of an ambitious and ruthless person." What Su Yu meant was that, if the faction's operation went too smoothly, Su Yu would make the faction's operation fail at all costs, putting everyone in danger, and then he would step in to save them. Yu Xiangwan did not dislike Su Yu's actions. How many years had the Greater One sect been harming the outer domain? Deceiving them for how many years? How many outstanding young prodigies did they kill? Even if she really caused their deaths, Yu Xiangwan would not feel the least bit guilty. "Then are you willing to work with me?" Su Yu said with a faint smile. Yu Xiangwan laughed. "Why don't you and I compete to see who can save more people? How about that?" "Sure." Su Yu laughed. He suddenly felt that Yu Xiangwan was to his liking. Both of them were good at scheming, and it was even rarer that they got along well. The two of them looked at each other and smiled, using their respective movement techniques at the same time. Su Yu pulled down a corner of his blindfold without concealment, displaying the space domain, and rushed over in an instant. Yu Xiangwan laughed. "Looks like I have to show my true abilities too." He reached into his robes with 2 fingers and took out an ancient seal. He muttered softly, "I haven't released myself in a long time." Su Yu, you better not lose to me. Boom! Yellow Path Master's cultivation level suddenly skyrocketed to the level of Xian Path Master, and his cultivation level was obviously a level higher than the merchant's. He took a step forward and entered the tribe in an instant. The two of them searched for the captured Greater One Sect martial artists. The first to discover them was Su Yu. He had mastered the 8 great domains, so he was faster than others in searching for people and items. The first person he found was a hall master. He was severely injured. Half of his body had been shattered by the demon elder, and only half of his body was left. He was caught by 2 merchants of the same level as Xian Path Master. There are still fish that escaped the net. How amazing was the Xian Path Master's perception! They immediately discovered Su Yu's existence, and roared angrily as they charged toward him. Su Yu smiled lightly, his silver hair fluttering in the wind. He had finally released the Xian Path Master realm that he had hidden for a long time. A surge of Xian Path energy, which was far more powerful than others of the same level, erupted and collided with the 2 Xian Path Masters. With a loud explosion, the 2 Xian Dao Sect Masters were sent flying in disbelief. Su Yu grabbed the heavily injured Hall Master with his palm and stuffed him into the storage space. Then, he went to another place at lightning speed and continued to rescue the second one. In this way, he was unstoppable, rescuing the Hall Masters from the merchants one by one. If he encountered any elite disciples along the way, he would also rescue them. After half a cup of tea's time, Su Yu's right eye suddenly twitched. A hint of danger filled his heart. He didn't have to think to know that the demon elder had returned. Although there were still 1 or 2 hall masters that he hadn't rescued, it was enough. Swish! A large Milky Way appeared in front of him, and he left in an instant. Yu Xiangwan sensed the danger almost at the same time as Su Yu and quickly escaped. The two of them had a tacit understanding. They did not meet up together, but chose to separate and escape separately. The demon elder returned to the tribe, his left hand clutching a bloody, heavily injured figure. It was the third steward. In the end, he failed to escape the demon elder's pursuit. His thousands of duplicates were seen through, and his original body was captured. What happened? The demon elder stared coldly at the injured people on the ground, as well as the many captured hall masters of the Greater One Sect. A group of merchants endured their injuries and came forward to kneel on one knee to ask for forgiveness. After learning that after he left, 2 young men with extraordinary strength killed their way into the tribe and rescued everyone, he was furious. Trash! With a roar, a powerful aura was generated around him, sending the group of merchants flying and smashing their houses. Cough, cough. Jean Yu's face was pale, and she violently coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. Everyone, go after them! The demon elder was furious. If not for the fact that he still needed them to serve the demon faction, he would have killed all of them on the spot. Yes. The group of merchants gave chase. But Su Yu and Yu Xiangwan, one using the space domain, the other mysterious and unpredictable. How could they be caught up so easily? Even if they could sense their location, it was still extremely difficult to catch up. The demon elder took the lead, furiously taking the lead to give chase. The direction in which he was chasing happened to be where Su Yu was. Su Yu sensed the danger behind him, and his expression changed slightly. Without hesitation, he completely released the space domain, crossing an extremely long distance with one step. But what made Su Yu slightly apprehensive was that the demon elder's speed was not inferior to his, and he was constantly closing the distance between them. At this speed, Su Yu would be caught up in less than 3 days. At that time, Su Yu was still far from escaping back to the faction. A day passed, and the distance between them was reduced by half. The more the demon elder chased, the more frightened he became. He thought that as long as he locked onto his target, with his cultivation, he would only need a cup of tea's time to catch up. But unexpectedly, he chased for a whole day. Does he have a superior flying treasure? The demon elder was surprised. The demonic faction was best at flying, and very few flying treasures could compare. With the Greater One sect, there should be no hope. But when the chase came to the second day, the other party still had no intention of stopping. The demon elder was starting to believe that the other party had an extremely powerful treasure. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to escape for so long. "It's a pity that you ran into me." The demon elder's eyes were filled with a cruel light. If it had been other merchants, they really would not have been able to catch Suyu. On the third day, the demon elder saw a silver-haired human from afar, stepping on the Milky Way, crossing thousands of miles with each step. Space domain. The demon elder was shocked. In the Dream Duan realm, only the descendants of the Space Master can cultivate the space domain. Could this person be one of the descendants of the Space Master? Thinking of this, the demon elder did not retreat. Instead, his eyes were filled with astonishment, and he could not help but laugh. "This is a heaven-sent opportunity. I actually met a descendant of the Space Master's bloodline who was scattered outside, and his cultivation is so weak." Under normal circumstances, the descendants of the Space Master lived in that mysterious space and were strictly protected. They were one of the most noble bloodlines in the Dream Duan realm and rarely went out. Even if they went out, they would never act alone and would always be accompanied by powerful experts. There was almost no descendant of the Space Master's bloodline like the one in front of him, acting alone. If he could capture him and bring him back to the demon faction, it would be a great credit. It would allow him to rise to the top in a single step, and it was even possible for him to become the left and right protectors. Hearing the long shout behind him, Su Yu's eyes had an additional touch of seriousness. A strong man who was close to the Pathmaster, such an existence would not be much weaker than the clone of Prince Xiaoyao who was holding the Emperor ruler. However, Su Yu might have a way to escape. Myriad Star River transformations. The Milky Way under Su Yu's feet suddenly expanded 10,000 times, enveloping everything within its range. The demon elder was the same. He was caught off guard and was enveloped. He was surprised to find that Su Yu was clearly in front of him, but no matter how hard he chased, he could not catch up with Su Yu. Instead, Su Yu gradually disappeared at the other end of the Milky Way, disappearing without a trace. This was the enemy trapping technique of the space domain. Seeing that he was about to lose track of Su Yu, the demon elder was anxious. With an angry roar, he released his own domain, forcibly breaking a crack in the space domain, and drilled out through the crack. He immediately looked around, but there was no trace of Su Yu. What entered his eyes was just a mountain range of mountains. The demon elder's eyes slowly narrowed. "Boy, I know you haven't escaped far. You are nearby. Come out obediently, and I can spare your life. If you don't, humph, you don't want to know the consequences." Su Yu had trapped his opponent with the space domain, so naturally, he could not continue to use the space domain to escape. He was hiding in the 10,000 mountains below. Chapter 2483. Hearing the demon elder's threat, Su Yu held his breath. He used the 8 domains to form a very ordinary green mountain around him, and he hid in the belly of the mountain. Because of the 8 domains' concealment, his breath was also completely isolated. Even though the demon elder's cultivation was close to that of an underworld master, it was difficult for him to detect Su Yu's cultivation. For a long time, Su Yu showed no signs of offering himself. The demon elder snorted coldly. The 1,000-feet wings on his back suddenly flapped wildly, and a sharp sound radiated to the endless mountains. With a rumble, one by one, the mountains were blown to pieces. The mountains and rivers of an 8-star civilization were nourished by the path energy in the air all year round, and their sturdiness was naturally far greater than that of the outer regions. If the demon elder's attack was performed in the outer regions, it would certainly be able to easily destroy a civilization. However, in an 8-star civilization, it could only tear apart tens of thousands of green mountains. In the deafening noise, the green mountain where Su Yu was also blown up, turning into 9 boulders that splashed in all directions. Su Yu was hiding in one of the boulders. The demon elder stared coldly at the sky full of flying rubble, stretched out a palm, and said coldly, "I'll let you see the power of the demonic faction." Demonic wind lasts. In an instant, a black gust of wind blew between heaven and earth. The gust of wind ignored the obstruction of the boulders and blew straight into the inside of the stones. Those who hid within would inevitably be corroded by the black wind. Su Yu suddenly felt his body go cold, and there was a sharp pain of corrosion inside his body. If he allowed it to continue, Su Yu would be corroded from the inside out into a pool of blood. If he tried to stop it, once he used the power of the Pathmaster, the demon elder would definitely notice. He was forcing Su Yu to make a move. However, Su Yu was not even afraid of the 9 Serenity's evil wind in the mine, so why would he be afraid of a mere demonic wind? Slivers of life force continued to evolve in Su Yu's body, repairing his corroded body. No matter how much the demonic wind corroded, it could be repaired by the life force. After a whole incense stick of time, the demon elder consumed a lot of mysterious path energy, but there was no effect as expected. He could not help but wonder, has he already escaped? But then he shook his head, confirming his judgment. If he had a way to get rid of me, he would have used it in the past 3 days. Why wait until now? This plan was ineffective. Looking at the rubble that fell all over the ground, Elder Mo was unwilling. "I don't believe that I won't be able to find you." He smashed the stones into smithereens one by one, personally inspecting the interior of the stone. However, the 100,000 mountains had been smashed into pieces. How many rocks had appeared? To check them one by one, with just Elder Mo alone, it would probably take a very long time. For 10 consecutive days, Elder Mo had only checked less than half of them. Elder Mo. Greetings, Elder Mo. On this day, the group of people who had followed the demonic elder to chase after Su Yu had finally caught up with the demonic elder's pace. They were 10 whole days behind him. Elder Mo's eyes lit up. "You came at the right time. You're in charge of that piece of rock. Smash it completely. Don't miss a single grain of sand. You're in charge of the other area." And you, with the addition of 10 merchants, their speed was obviously much faster. Jean Yu was in charge of the centermost stone. She did not understand why Elder Mo was so persistent. It was one thing for a junior to run away, but was there a need to go through so much trouble? If he had the time, wouldn't it be better to do something else? Moreover, what was the use of breaking the stone to check every grain of sand inside? But since Elder Mo had given the order, they had no choice but to obey. Under such circumstances, they carried out the task very efficiently. Half a month later, Jean Yu stood on a giant stone, a little tired. In half a month, there had been no results, and she could not help but suspect Elder Mo's intentions. Sighing, Jean Yu chiseled the stone under her feet, split it into 2 halves, and then destroyed the other half, repeating the process until the whole stone was crushed into granules. Then, she checked the granules of the stone one by one. She had been repeating the same task for half a month, without sleep or rest, and had long since become visually tired. Therefore, when she glanced at one of the slightly strange dust particles, she did not immediately give a warning. Instead, she looked at it blankly again. That dust particle was slightly different from the others. Although it was the same size, the texture and color were obviously different, and there was a faint hint of the space domain. Suddenly, her spirit jolted. Could it be that this was what Elder Mo was looking for? She was overjoyed, and was about to say something, when suddenly, a wave of soul light shot out from the dust particle and entered between her eyebrows. In an instant, Jean Yu felt a sharp pain in her soul. Oh no, her soul was being eroded. "Do you still need me to erode your soul? I can kill you in a snap of my fingers." Su Yu's indifferent voice sounded from the depths of her soul, and at the same time, a breath of the soul domain that made her tremble filled her soul. Soul. Jin Yu blurted out in horror, and almost said the words, soul domain. Fortunately, Su Yu controlled her soul with the domain, so she did not shout it out. If you want to die, you can shout it at any time, Su Yu said lightly. Jin Yu was terrified to the extreme. The soul domain, this was something that only the soul dominator and his descendants could master, right? Hearing Su Yu's threat, Jin Yu felt a chill in her heart. Would it be difficult for such an existence to kill her? Elder, please spare my life, I have no choice, don't kill me, Jin Yu said in her soul. Su Yu snorted lightly. The one who is threatening your life is not me, but your demon elder. Him? Jin Yu was stunned for a moment, and then she understood, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. She finally understood why the demon elder was so reluctant to hunt down Su Yu. It was because Su Yu was most likely a descendant of the soul dominator. Once such a person was handed over to the demon faction, it would be a great merit. In order to keep the secret, the demon elder did not want Su Yu to be known by the other demon elders, and then take away his merit. As the discoverer, could Jin Yu and the merchants who were looking for him be spared? Perhaps the other demon elders could, but the demon elder in front of her would not. He was known throughout the demon faction for his ruthlessness. After all, he had worked for the demon faction for many years, and he was Xian Dao Master, whose cultivation was successful. Jin Yu immediately understood the stakes. Elder, thank you for your guidance, Jin Yu said. At that moment, a questioning look floated over. Jin Yu, did you find anything? Jin Yu quickly hid the strange look on her face and body, and shook her head. No. Only then did the demon elder withdraw his gaze. Jin Yu continued to crush the stone quietly, but in her mind she was communicating with Su Yu. Elder, do you need my help? If he was free, Jin Yu could avoid the disaster of being killed. Put me away. Jin Yu hesitated a little, but still followed Su Yu's instructions and hid the speck of dust between her nails. Another month passed. After 2 whole months, the demon elder destroyed all the nearby mountains into dust, but did not find even half a shadow of Su Yu. After a futile effort, the demon elder let out a long sigh. It's my bad luck. If time allowed, he would keep searching. However, as the demon elder, he could not leave the faction for too long. This time, he had been away for more than half a year. He had to go back, otherwise the demon lord would be suspicious. Looking at Jin Yu and the others, the demon elder waved his hand and led them back to the station. In the hall, the demon elder summarized the inspection and said, "Since this station has been discovered by the Supreme Sect, it must be abandoned. I order you to find a new station within a month and inform the faction." Yes. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The demon elder was anxious to go back, and had no time to investigate their incompetence. He slowly got up and looked at Jin Yu for the last time. After thinking for a while, he said, "Rebuilding the station is a long way off. I order you to make up for your mistakes. You must find a channel to trade with the Supreme Sect disciples within a year, otherwise, you will be severely punished." Jin Yu was very grateful and bowed. "I will do my best." She was relieved that she would not be forced to go back to the demon faction. However, the problem was, how difficult would it be to re-establish a deal with the Supreme Sect within a year? After this incident, the Supreme Sect was bound to strengthen supervision and precautions. It would be extremely difficult for the internal disciples to resell the 9 Serenities crystal in the faction. A year was too short. If they could not complete it, they would still not escape punishment. In this way, the demon elders stopped and left. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately began to move the station according to his instructions. Jin Yu returned to her house, and with a shake of her nails, dust fell out. Under his incredulous gaze, the speck of dust grew from small to large, and then it folded into a complete human. "Senior." Jin Yu bowed. Su Yu sized her up calmly and said, "We meet again." "Again? You are?" Jin Yu was stunned. Su Yu did not speak. He casually sat down on a stone bench and said, I've heard what Elder Mo said. Now, I'm giving you a chance to live. Do you want it? Senior, what do you mean? Jean Yu's heart was filled with anticipation as she vaguely understood what Su Yu meant. Without saying a word, Su Yu took out a space storage device, opened it, and poured it on the ground. Immediately, the dark crystal that was the size of a cow fell to the ground and banged on the ground. Seeing this object, Jean Yu was obviously stunned for a moment, and then she cried out involuntarily, "7th grade Netherworld crystal? 7th rank?" Su Yu nodded inwardly. He had already expected this. This giant 9 nether crystal was obviously darker in color than the previous 8th grade 9 nether crystal. "Take a closer look," Su Yu said calmly. Jean Yu's face was full of excitement. She estimated that this 9 Serenities crystal weighed at least 250 kilograms. Upon hearing Su Yu's words, Jean Yu's heart thumped wildly. Could it be? She took out a magic tool and placed the 9 nether crystal on it. Soon, a line of words flashed on the magic tool that shocked her eyes. 7th grade 9 nether odd crystal, 250 kilograms. Oh my god! It's actually an odd crystal? Jean Yu exclaimed as she covered her mouth, her face full of disbelief and shock. 7th grade 9 nether odd crystals were extremely rare, and such a huge one was even rarer. That was not all, but there was an odd crystal inside. Chapter 2484. Senior, do you mean to sell it to me? Jean Yu was overjoyed. Su Yu nodded. This is just the beginning. From now on, I can be your trading channel with the Greater One faction. Hearing this, Jean Yu was finally relieved. At this moment, she was just short of worshipping Su Yu like a bodhisattva. But suddenly, her face fell, and she said with a bitter smile, "Senior, maybe I can't even start." She looked at the 500 kilograms of 7th grade 9 Serenities odd crystal with a helpless look. Su Yu understood the meaning in her words and said, "Why? You don't have enough time crystals?" "Yes," Jean Yu said, "a kilogram of 7th grade 9 Serenities odd crystal can be exchanged for 40 time crystals. With the addition of the 9 Serenities odd crystal, the value is at least doubled, which is 81 kilograms. In the end, it's worth 20,000 time crystals. I'm just a merchant, and I only have a little more than 10,000 time crystals at my disposal every year." Su Yu's face was full of disappointment. She had thought of everything except that as a merchant, the demon faction couldn't give her unlimited rights to use the time crystals. "How about this, Senior? Sell the outer layer of 9 Serenities odd crystal to me, and keep the inner layer of 9 Serenities odd crystal for yourself. How about that?" Jean Yu said nervously. Su Yu's eyes flickered. "Is there a loss for me?" Jean Yu nodded honestly. "To be precise, there is a risk of loss. The reason why the 9 Serenities odd crystal is so expensive is that it's impossible to determine the value of the things sealed inside. Many forces will buy them at a price several times that of the factions, just to try their luck and dig out the divine objects from the early years of the era." Hearing this, Su Yu raised his brows slightly. "I have a question that I would like to ask you. What is the purpose of the factions and forces like the demon faction frantically snatching the 9 Serenities crystals? What is the use of these crystals?" Su Yu asked. Jean Yu blinked, as if asking why Su Yu would ask such a childish question. But thinking of Su Yu's identity as an outsider, Jean Yu felt relieved and said, "Senior, you may not know this, but since the early years of the era, the Dream-Divided Realm has begun to plunder 9 Serenities crystals. Ordinary 9 Serenities crystals can be used to exchange for time crystals from the Time Master, and 9 Serenities odd crystals can be cut out to obtain very important divine objects. In other words, all the 9 Serenities crystals of the Dream-Divided Realm had fallen into the hands of the Master of Time. Jean Yu only knew one of its uses, she did not know the other. Alright, what kind of divine items can be found in the 9 nether odd crystal? Su Yu asked. Jean Yu immediately became excited. There are many treasures from the early years of the epic. If you're lucky, you can get divine weapons, Tao artifacts, and divine technique spots from the early years of the epic. If you're extremely lucky, you can even get the Tao body of an unparalleled Almighty from the early years of the epic. Throughout history, the luckiest one is the Howran clan. They obtained a giant 3rd grade 9 nether odd crystal, from which they got a Tao master level spiritual pet. It's even alive, which greatly increased the strength of the Howran clan. Suyu didn't care about the so-called divine item. He thought to himself, it's already an item from the beginning of the era. What good stuff can there be in it? At most, they were just some inanimate objects. Who would have thought that there would actually be a living thing? The 9 nether odd crystal has existed since the first year of the era, right? How could the thing sealed inside still be alive? Suyu asked. Jinhua shook her head and said, that's why it depends on luck. 99% of the sealed objects of the 9 nether odd crystals are dead, but there are very few exceptions. They have appeared several times throughout the era. As she spoke, she couldn't help but look at the giant 7th grade 9 nether odd crystal in front of Suyu, her eyes full of anticipation. Suyu couldn't help but be tempted. No wonder Jinhua said that the value of the 9 nether odd crystal would depreciate greatly after it was cut open. If the item inside was found to be worthless after it was cut open, the value of this piece of 9 nether odd crystal would be no different from that of an ordinary 9 nether crystal. I'm just making a suggestion. It's up to you to decide. Suyu thought for a moment and said, cut it. Even if the item inside was worthless, he could still get 10,000 time crystals, which was in line with his expectations. Alright. Jinhua took out a doctrine artifact that was neither gold nor wood and handed it to Suyu. She said, this is a doctrine artifact specially made for cutting the 9 nether odd crystal, the heterogeneous saber. Suyu took it and found that this item was somewhat similar to the special tools sold in the Greater One faction, but it was more exquisite. He tried to cut the 9 nether crystal, and sure enough, it was extremely sharp. It was like cutting a lump of mud, and it could be said to be able to cut iron like mud. Under the gaze of Jinua's beautiful eyes, Suyu cut the huge 9 nether odd crystal layer by layer. In the end, when the knife cut the innermost layer, it was finally possible to see what was inside with the naked eye. It's a humanoid creature. Jinua exclaimed and said, you're lucky. Such a 9 nether odd crystal can be sold for 4 times the price. Suyu looked at it and found that it was a savage beast that stood on its hind legs. It was full of spirituality and was faintly close to a living creature, so it was called a humanoid creature. As for the 9 nether crystal in front of him, because the outer layer was peeled off, there were only 100 pounds left. In theory, it could only be sold for 4,000 time crystals. However, because it was a humanoid creature, the price was 4 times higher, which was enough to sell for 4,000 time crystals. In addition to the 400 pounds of time crystals that had been peeled off before, it could be sold for 16,000 time crystals. In total, it could be sold for 20,000 time crystals. If Suyu sold it all, it would only be worth 20,000 time crystals. Suyu was lucky to be able to open a humanoid creature. If he was unlucky, he would have to make a loss. If you play this business, you may lose everything if you're not careful, Suyu sighed. Jinua said disapprovingly, Senior, you may not know this, but if you can get the best out of it, the harvest will be the time crystals that can't be used up in several lifetimes. It will be more than enough to establish a faction. Of the 344 sects today, half of them have the capital to establish their sects and grow bigger and bigger, because they've cut out something valuable today. Therefore, even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance, everyone has to give it a try. Money could move people's hearts, not to mention the great cause of a faction. Suyu finally understood why some people were so crazy for the 9 nether odd crystals. Well, you can take the leftovers, I will hold the innermost layer for the time being. Suyu only took 100 pounds of the inner layer of 9 nether odd crystals. Jinhue had already carefully picked up the large pieces of 9 nether odd crystals that had been peeled off the ground and put them away happily. She then took out 16,000 time crystals and said joyfully, "Senior, you have helped me a lot." Not only did he reopen the channel of the Supreme One sect, but he also sold her 400 pounds of 7th grade 9 nether crystals. This was the total amount she had obtained in the past 5 years. This is the time and place for the next transaction. Suyu handed her a jade pendant and covered it with a layer of her scent. Only she could open it. If others forcibly broke it open, they would only destroy the contents inside. Next time, I will give Senior a surprise. Jinhue seemed to have decided on something, her beautiful eyes flashing. Suyu was surprised and said with a smile, "I hope so." After doing this, he left quietly. After a month, he successfully returned to the faction. Just as he arrived outside the faction, a stream of light streaked past and stopped him. "Brother Su, I did not wait in vain for a few months. The person who came was Yu Xiangwan. He had successfully escaped the pursuit of the traveling merchants and had returned to the faction a few months ago. However, he did not immediately report back to the sect. Instead, he waited here." Suyu said, "Why didn't you go first? If Yu Xiangwan had returned first, the credit might have been greater. Don't change the subject." Yu Xiangwan stared at Suyu, her eyes full of surprise. "You actually managed to escape from the pursuit of the demonic faction's elder. Brother Su, you are the one who hid your abilities well." Thinking of Su Yu's strategic planning and his unfathomable abilities, Yu Xiangwan felt an inexplicable chill. Looking at Su Yu was like looking into an abyss. If she was not careful, she could fall into the abyss and be consigned to eternal damnation. "Haha, just a little trick, let's not talk about it. Let's go back." Su Yu avoided the topic. Yu Xiangwan desperately wanted to know, but it was not convenient to get to the bottom of it. She sighed helplessly. "Sigh, I used to think that all the slaves were stupid and that I was the only one who stood out. I did not expect there to be a freak like you hidden among the slaves." Yu Xiangwan was a nature-defying existence in his hometown. Before he left, he unified the entire hometown with his own strength and established a never-before-seen empire. In his hometown, he was the revered Great Emperor, the first emperor of the world. When he came to the Greater One faction, he looked down on the other slave. Even Suyu had looked down on them. Unexpectedly, he was a freak, but Suyu was even more of a freak. Suyu smiled without saying a word and returned to the faction with him. At the entrance of the faction, there were 2 strong fighters of the faction standing guard. "Who are you?" the 2 fighters asked. Yu Xiangwan said indifferently, 3 months ago, people who were sent out to annihilate the merchants." Hearing that, the 2 of them were shocked. "What are your names?" The operation 3 months ago had ended in failure. There was no news of the elites of the faction led by the 3rd deacon. The faction judged that they had met with misfortune. How could the 2 guards not be shocked when 2 slaves suddenly returned? Yu Xiangwan, Suyu. When the names were read out, the 2 guards immediately took out the information on the slaves and confirmed that they were real people. "The 2 of you, quickly follow me to the Affairs Division and report to the Division Master what happened that day." The 2 guards realized the severity of the situation and did the same. Su Yu and Yu Xiangwan arrived at the Affairs Division. The Affairs Division had a Division Master and 2 Deputy Division Masters. To ensure that the facts were correct, the 2 Deputy Division Masters each brought 1 person to the side chamber for questioning. In the slightly dark side chamber, Su Yu stood. In front of him sat a Deputy Division Master with a rugged face and a strong physique. Su Yu felt that his facial features were slightly familiar. "Audacious slave, why did you come back alive when all the guards were dead? Were you the one who set them up? Tell me honestly, tell me." It was thought to be a question, but in reality, it became an interrogation. From the start, the Deputy Division Master roared at him. Chapter 2485. How could he be so sure that he had framed the three managers? Anyone with a bit of sense would not think so. How could a slave frame the three managers and a group of powerful fighters? Suyu stared at the fierce-looking deputy master and calmly said, "Since you've already said so, everything I say is just sophistry in your eyes, right?" Slap! The deputy master slammed his palm on the table, shattering it into pieces. "Insolence! How dare you speak to me like that?" Suyu looked at him, his eyes calm. He could already confirm that the deputy master was deliberately targeting him. "Is it Xianin's people?" Suyu shook his head. Xianin was already dead. How could she control others to deal with him? Suddenly, Suyu thought of someone. The trusted supervisor of the 9th mine, that brute. Looking closely, the deputy master in front of him looked very similar to that brute. "I see," Suyu said, suddenly understanding. No wonder the deputy master wanted to frame Suyu with a crime and put him to death. It turned out that he was inextricably linked to that brute. Everything made sense now. "Speak. How did you set them up?" the vice hall master shouted. A large number of fighters, including the three managers, had been annihilated. This matter had become something that even the faction master paid close attention to. Since that was the case, why not go with the flow and get rid of Suyu? The supervisor of the mine was none other than his nephew. Suyu hid his hands in his sleeves and closed his eyes, not saying a word. He did not admit it, nor did he argue. "Fine, since you are not speaking, that means you agree." The deputy master wrote down a confession on the spot. He stared at Suyu with a pair of cold eyes. "Considering that you framed the faction's fighters and caused great harm, I, the deputy master, will punish you with banishment according to the faction's laws. Guards." He did not even report to the faction master, acting on his own. A mere slave could die, and with his relationship with the faction master, he would not make things difficult for him. It was just that his actions were truly shocking. Without any evidence, he could casually sentence a person to death. Suyu had never heard of the punishment of banishment, but he knew that it would not be any less severe than the death penalty. "Deputy Clan Master, before I acknowledge you as the Deputy Clan Master, I advise you to restrain yourself. Otherwise you will regret it," Suyu said calmly. The Deputy Clan Master pointed at himself, then at Suyu, as if he didn't care. What he meant was, "Who do you think you are to threaten me?" Walala! Several somber law enforcers immediately rushed over and took him away according to the Vice Hall Master's orders. The place they were heading to was one of the 10,000 domains of the sect. This region had always been sealed off, and no one was allowed to casually enter. When the seal on this domain was undone, a huge black hole appeared in the ground. The inside of the cave was pitch black, and the bone-piercingly cold netherworld evil wind could be faintly felt. "Explain the punishment of banishment to this Suyu." The deputy division master placed his hands behind his back and sneered coldly. The law enforcers who could be ordered by him at any time were naturally his people. He put on a fake smile and said, "The so-called banishment punishment is to banish criminals who have committed the most heinous crimes to an abandoned mine." The mines in the Greater One sect were not the only one that was being excavated. There is only one reason why the mine has been abandoned, and that is because the minerals have been excavated to the netherworld, the law enforcer said. Now, it is filled with the netherworld evil wind at all times, and the living creatures banished there have never lived more than 2 days. This was tantamount to a death sentence. Suyu did not care at all when he heard that. If he was banished to another place, he would have to be more cautious. After all, what kind of danger would there be if he was banished to an abandoned mine with the netherworld evil wind? On the contrary, Suyu was very interested in going down to take a look at the so-called netherworld. Usually, the abandoned mine was tightly sealed, and no one was allowed to enter. Now, he had a chance to explore it. "Why? Aren't you afraid?" The deputy division master was displeased when he did not get the regret and fear he wanted to see from Su Yu's expression. Su Yu shrugged. What's there to be afraid of? Everyone will die sooner or later, won't they? His words stunned the deputy division master, and his face quickly darkened. He clenched his teeth and said, "Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. Send him down." A group of law enforcers pushed Su Yu down, and then sealed the mine's seal. In less than 2 days, Su Yu would definitely become one of the cold corpses. Let's go. The deputy division master heaved a sigh of relief and thought to himself, I've finally avenged my nephew. I hope he can fulfill his promise and help me with that matter. On the other side, Deputy Division Master Li, who was questioning Yu Xiangwan, thought he was just trying to confirm what had happened at that time. But who would have thought that when he asked, he would get a huge piece of news? Most of the division masters did not die and were saved by Yu Xiangwan. Is this true? Deputy Division Master Li slammed the table and stood up in surprise. Because of this, the faction master felt it was a great pity. If he knew that those division masters did not die and were saved, he would be very happy. This was a great merit. Of course, Yu Xiangwan said, my other companion and I saved quite a number of people. Deputy Division Master Li was overjoyed. Quick, let me see them. Yu Xiangwan took out a space storage device. With a wave of her sleeve, 7 to 8 division masters and deputy division masters were released, as well as 10 elite disciples. Most of them were unconscious and some of them were seriously injured. But without exception, all of them were still alive. Division Master Jiang of the Law Enforcement Division, Division Master Wang of the External Affairs Division, Division Master Zhao of the Treasury Division. Deputy Division Master Li counted and heaved a sigh of relief. At least not all of them died. Oh yes, how many people did your companion save? More than you? Deputy Division Master Li asked anxiously. They had sent out a total of 20 division masters and deputy division masters, and they had saved 7 to 8 people. If that person could also save some of them, the greater one sex losses would be greatly reduced. Yu Xiangwan shook her head. I haven't had the time to ask, but it shouldn't be less than me. If it was in the past, he probably would not think so, but after seeing Su Yu's prowess, he could not help but guess that the number of people Su Yu saved might be more than him. All right, come with me to meet the head steward immediately. Since that group of people failed their mission and died en masse, the faction master had personally gone to the Hauran Holy Land to recruit new division masters. Currently, only the head steward was in the faction. This matter must be reported to the head steward. Yu Xiangwan's heart settled. The merit this time might be greater than she had imagined. Once they succeeded, it would not be difficult to change their status from slave to official goalkeeper. Deputy Division Master Li brought Yu Xiangwan and immediately rushed to the room where Su Yu was. He shouted outside the secret room, Deputy Division Master Qin, have you heard the good news? Unexpectedly, Deputy Division Master Qin was not among them. Where is he? Deputy Division Master Li asked the gatekeeper. The latter avoided his gaze and said, I don't know where he brought Su Yu to. Hearing this, Deputy Division Master Li mistakenly thought that Deputy Division Master Qin had also found out from Su Yu that not all the people had died that day. Hence, he brought Su Yu alone to look for the head steward to receive the reward. Damn it, to think that I treated him as a colleague. Deputy Division Master Li slapped his thigh and said angrily, Let's go, let's hurry over immediately. Deputy Division Master Li brought Yu Xiangwan to meet the head steward anxiously. In a certain area of the faction, under an ancient tree, an elder with short golden hair was sitting cross-legged. Li Yun from the Affairs Division greets the head steward, Li Yun said respectfully. The golden-haired elder was the second in command in the faction, the head steward. His cultivation level was very close to that of an underworld master, and his abilities were similar to that of the demon elder who had chased after Su Yu. Now that the faction master has left, all the divisions are short of manpower. Did you leave your post on your own accord because of an urgent matter? The head steward looked displeased. Li Yun's face was full of joy. Reporting to head steward, it is because of an urgent matter that I came to disturb head steward's cultivation. He pushed Yu Xiangwan forward and said, "This is the slave who carried out the mission of annihilating the outpost with us 3 months ago." There was a glint in the Grand Steward's eyes. He looked at Yu Xiangwan and immediately asked, "Tell me quickly, what happened that day? Why didn't the third steward and the rest of the sect's experts return?" Hence, Yu Xiangwan told him the truth of the matter in full detail. Knowing that a demon elder had arrived at the outpost, she could not help but gasp. No wonder none of them returned. No one in the faction had expected that a demon elder would personally come to the outpost. "Head steward, this slave has a great piece of good news to report." The head steward raised his golden eyebrows. "Oh? Tell me about it." Yu Xiangwan smiled and threw a space storage device to the head steward. "Head steward, please take a look." The latter held the space storage device and took a look inside. His expression changed drastically as a hint of surprise and joy appeared in his eyes. "What happened?" Yu Xiangwan said, "I snatched it back when they were relaxed. I'm weak and could only save this many people." "Wow!" The head steward shook his palm and released all the people inside the storage device. He then personally treated their injuries so that they could recover quickly. Seeing that they were gradually getting better, the head steward looked much more relaxed. When he looked at Yu Xiangwan again, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. "What's your name?" "I'm Yu Xiangwan." The head steward nodded silently and took out a bronze token. He personally engraved the 3 words, Yu Xiangwan, on it. With a flick of his finger, the token was sent back to him. "From today onwards, you're an official member of the Tai sect and belong to the Hall of Affairs." Yu Xiangwan bowed gratefully. "Thank you, head steward, for your reward. It's what I should do. You've made great contributions to the faction and should be rewarded." It could be seen that the head steward was in a good mood. Vice Head Li also laughed. "Head steward, there's another person who acted together with Yu Xiangwan. He also saved many people. According to speculation, the number of people saved might not be less than him." "What?" The head steward was already very satisfied to be able to save 7 to 8 hall masters and vice heads. Knowing that half of them were also saved, that meant that they did not lose their core strength this time. How could he not be excited? "Where is he? Bring him here." Chapter 2486. "Send it to me." The chief steward beamed with joy. The heavy burden on his chest had been lifted. He could not wait to meet the other batch of rescued people and confirm if they were really safe. Yes. The chief steward's region had a communication method to contact the core figures of the major sections. An attendant immediately sent a message to Deputy Hall Master Qin, ordering him to meet the chief steward in 5 minutes. "Mine number 9. The boorish man grinned. "Thank you for your help, uncle. I'm very grateful." Standing in front of him was Deputy Hall Master Qin. We're uncle and nephew. There's no need to thank me." Deputy Hall Master Qin waved his hand and said, "As long as you can represent the Affairs Hall and complete the task there in a few months, I'll be satisfied." The boorish man patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, uncle. I'll definitely satisfy you." Deputy Hall Master Qin nodded in satisfaction. At that moment, Deputy Hall Master Qin suddenly received a message. He opened it and his expression changed drastically. "The chief steward is summoning me." The boorish man revealed a look of awe and joy. The chief steward rarely goes out and rarely summons people. Now that he's summoning you, it seems like he's going to put you in an important position. Recently, the sect had lost a large number of Hall Master level missions, and there were many vacancies. As the Deputy Hall Master of the Affairs Hall, his uncle had been in charge for many years. He was experienced and deeply trusted by the sect. The chief steward had most likely summoned him to discuss the matter of appointing him as hall master. Congratulations in advance, uncle. The next time we meet, I might have to call you Hall Master Cheen, the boorish man said. Deputy Hall Master Cheen waved his hand, pretending to be humble. Hee, don't make a fuss before things are settled. Who knows, he might be criticizing me. Although he said that, he did not think much of it. At such a juncture, the chief steward should win over every core figure of the sect. Why would he criticize him for no reason? He might really be promoted to a hall master this time. While he was thinking, Deputy Hall Master Cheen quickly rushed to where the chief steward was. He bowed respectfully from afar. I'm Cheen Yuan from the Affairs Hall. Greetings, Chief Steward. He sneaked a glance and saw that Li Yun was there too. He thought, even he is here. This means that the Deputy Hall Master is really important. However, he was slightly puzzled by the fact that the escaped slave was there too. Cheen Yuan. The chief manager's brows relaxed, and there was a smile on his face. This made Cheen Yuan certain that he was going to appoint him as the hall master of a certain hall. However, he heard words that did not match at all. Where is the young master you asked about? Cheen Yuan's expression stiffened. Who? Is he talking about Su Yu? Seeing Cheen Yuan's hesitation, Li Yun immediately tried to smooth things over. Haha, brother Cheen Yuan, I thought that you were here alone to claim credit. It turns out that you haven't gotten the answer yet. Cheen Yuan was at a loss. What did you find out? Li Yun pointed at Yu Xiang Wan and stroked his beard with a smile. These two young masters who managed to escape are incredible. They actually managed to rescue all the higher-ups who were trapped in the hands of Elder Mo. Half of them were rescued by this young master, Yu Xiang Wan, while the other half were rescued by the young master you interrogated. Cheen Yuan was dumbstruck when he heard those words. A muffled clap of thunder flashed through his mind, causing his mind to go completely blank. The chief manager said with a smile, "That's right. I really did not expect that there would be two unparalleled talents among the slaves who saved many of the higher-ups of the Greater One sect. Cheen Yuan, hurry and bring them here. The other half of the higher-ups are in his hands." However, Cheen Yuan stood there motionlessly, his lips trembling. Finally, the chief manager and Li Yun realized that something was wrong with him. Cheen Yuan, the chief manager is asking you a question. Li Yun gave him a look. Didn't you see that the chief manager was already unhappy? This is a good thing. Don't spoil the chief manager's mood. However, Cheen Yuan's lips opened and closed. His forehead was full of sweat and he could not say a word. The chief manager's face darkened and he reprimanded, "Cheen Yuan, are you unhappy with me?" The other party did not reply to his consecutive questions. Thump. Cheen Yuan, who already felt that a great disaster was about to befall him, was so frightened that he knelt on the ground with a thud. His face was extremely pale. "Please spare my life, please spare my life." Everyone was stunned by this scene. Li Yun said, "Cheen Yuan, what do you mean by this? Why is he begging for mercy all of a sudden?" Only Yu Xiangwan seemed to realize something. Her face darkened. "What did you do to Su Yu?" At once, the chief manager and Li Yun's hearts skipped a beat. Could he have done something to Su Yu? Pow! The chief manager stood up abruptly and created a strong gust of air that blew Cheen Yuan off the ground. Then, he grabbed Cheen Yuan's neck with his palm, his veins throbbing. "If you don't tell me what happened, I'll strangle you to death right now." At this point, Cheen Yuan did not dare to hide anything. Reporting to the chief manager, I was careless and killed him in a misunderstanding." "What? Dead?" The chief manager's eyes shone brightly. "Where's the corpse?" "So what if he was dead?" The key was the space storage device that contained the survivors. In the abandoned mine. Cheen Yuan's face was full of despair. "Where?" The chief manager could not help but take a few steps back. Of all places, his corpse had to be in the abandoned mine. The 9 underworlds evil wind blew there at all times. Even he did not dare to go too deep into the mine. Su Yu was just a junior and would not last long in there. You. The chief manager looked at Qin Yuan once again, wishing he could strangle him to death. He had not only caused Su Yu's death, but also the higher-ups of the faction whom he had painstakingly rescued. There were at least 7 or 8 hall masters inside. "I'll kill you." The chief manager was furious. It was not uncommon for a hall master to find an excuse to kill a slave. In the past, he would not have bothered. But Qin Yuan had caused a huge disaster this time around. "Please wait," Li Yun pleaded. "Now that things have come to this, what's the point of killing Hall Master Qin? Why don't we let him atone for his crimes?" The chief manager's anger could not be quelled. He threw Li Yun to the ground. "You, go down to the abandoned mine immediately and bring Su Yu back. If you can't bring him back, don't come back. Go down to the mine?" Qin Yuan's expression was as ugly as it could get. Was that a place where humans could stay? Moreover, he had to find Su Yu? But if he did not go, he would be dead on the spot. Yes, I'll go now, right away." Qin Yuan got up in a hurry and ran over without stopping. At this moment, he hated his meddlesome nephew. Without his request, why would he make things difficult for a slave whom he had no grudge against? Suddenly, he realized that before Su Yu was thrown into the mine, he had warned him not to overdo things, lest he regret it. Now, he understood that Su Yu had the confidence to say such things because he held the lives of so many strong fighters of the faction in his hands. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Qin Yuan was so regretful that his intestines turned green. In the abandoned mine, Su Yu was thrown into the mine. What greeted his eyes was indeed an underground world that had been dug up to the point of devastation. At this moment, the underground mine was filled with countless evil winds of the 9 underworlds. A casual blow from it could take away half of a person's life force. Su Yu did not care at all, walking toward the depths of the mine. Gradually, a pale green light shone from the depths of the mine. Against the pale green light, the whole mine looked gloomy and eerie. Coupled with the roaring evil winds of the 9 underworlds, it really felt like he had entered the ghost prison of the 9 underworlds. Even though Su Yu was skilled and courageous, facing the legendary ghost prison of the 9 underworlds alone still made him feel numb. Forcing himself to calm down, Su Yu went deeper into the mine. Finally, he reached the end of the mine. Near the end, all kinds of tools that had not been collected in time were strewn about, even some 9 underworlds crystals that had not been taken away in time. There were also hundreds of skeletons lying quietly on the ground. It was obvious that when the mine was dug out, the 9 underworlds were dug out, and a large amount of evil winds of the 9 underworlds were attracted. It happened so suddenly that these people could not escape in time, and their lives were taken away by the sudden eruption of the rich evil winds of the 9 underworlds. At the end of the mine, Su Yu saw a gap the size of a head. On the other side of the gap, there was a deep, pale green color, and unknown screams were coming from it. Gusts of evil winds of the 9 underworlds were blowing out from the gap. Su Yu stood in front of the gap, a little unsteady, and was almost blown away by the evil winds of the 9 underworlds. What kind of place is the so-called 9 underworlds? Su Yu was very curious, and he immediately used his soul eyes to peer into the gap to find out what it was. In the end, when he went deep inside, the soul that he probed felt an extreme chill. That part of the soul quickly lost contact with Su Yu. At the same time, there was a piercing cold feeling that spread rapidly from that part of the soul to Su Yu's main body. Su Yu made a prompt decision to cut off the connection with that part of the soul. Whoosh! A dark emerald flame rushed over along the soul, burning until it was 30 feet away from Su Yu. Su Yu's main soul was in extreme pain, and it even froze. He shook his head fiercely, and immediately retreated, distancing himself from the emerald flame that was gradually shrinking to the other side of the gap. Su Yu still had lingering fears. He had almost implicated his main body. With the power of that strange emerald flame, If he had really been implicated, Su Yu would have died without a doubt. Could there really be a world of the 9 underworlds? Su Yu was bewildered. This had completely subverted his previous understanding. It was rumored that the 9 underworlds was a place where people died. However, Su Yu had mastered the realm of death, and he had long understood that people would not go anywhere after they died. They would only disappear into thin air, and then be reborn as other forms of life by the reincarnation cycle of energy. However, the strange world on the other side of the gap was really hard to explain. It was hard to imagine what kind of world it was. Chirp! Just as Su Yu was deep in thought, an eerie cry of a bird came from the other side of the gap. Su Yu could still clearly hear the sound of wings flapping. Impossible! There are still living creatures in that world? Su Yu was shocked. His soul had reached the level of Xian Dao Master. If that bird's soul was not affected by the emerald flame, wouldn't it be far more powerful than him? Whoosh! Suddenly, a strange, strong wind blew in along with the evil winds of the 9 underworlds. A large expanse of emerald flame was sent to the other side by the strong wind caused by the wings of the bird. Chapter 2487. At the same time, a faint snort came from the other side of the gap. How dare you barge into the ancient god realm of the underworld? Su Yu shuddered. Among the 9 great ancient gods, there was an ancient god called Ancient God Jiyo. Xian'er was the successor of Ancient God Jiyo. Could Ancient God Jiyo have created an ancient god realm like Ancient God Jojo? Was the ancient god realm under the Greater One sect? Su Yu was shocked as he thought about it. However, he had no time to think about it. The 9 nether emerald flames swept out rapidly, burning half of the mine. He dared not stay any longer. He immediately used the space realm to retreat. A moment later, he successfully reached the exit before the 9 nether emerald flames caught up. Although the exit was sealed, it was not difficult for Su Yu to escape with his 8 great realms. Just as he was about to activate the 8 great realms, the seal on the exit opened by itself, revealing a large gap. Su Yu was stunned, but he rushed forward immediately. As soon as he rushed out, the 9 nether emerald flames behind him followed, turning into a beam of light and bursting out. What he didn't expect was that there was a frightened figure standing next to the gap. Su Yu's sudden appearance had obviously shocked him. "Su Yu?" the man shouted in surprise. It was Qin Yuan, who was about to enter the abandoned mine to look for Su Yu. However, before he could rejoice, he was engulfed by the 9 nether emerald flames. With a shrill scream, Qin Yuan's soul was frozen. Then, his soul was quickly destroyed and his eyes dimmed. In just a moment, he could not be more dead. The 9 nether emerald flames were finally released after soaring into the sky. The mine gradually calmed down. However, Su Yu still had a lingering fear in his heart. He stared at Qin Yuan's corpse in silence. The scene on the other side of the mine was unforgettable for Su Yu. The so-called 9 netherworld turned out to be the ancient god realm of the underworld. While he was still in shock, the Grand Master and a group of strong men from the faction rushed over after hearing the huge commotion. Qin Yuan, who was already dead, and Su Yu, who was safe and sound. "Brother Su!" Yu Xiangwan was overjoyed. In the abandoned mine, the 9 nether evil wind was not the only danger. Although Su Yu was not afraid, he might not survive. Unexpectedly, he was not injured at all. What just happened? Why did I sense an extremely cold and gloomy thing appearing? Yu Xiangwan asked in surprise. Su Yu told her the whole story, leaving out the mysterious bird's words. When the great steward and the others heard this, their expressions instantly turned solemn. "You're saying that a dark green flame that can harm souls appeared on the other side?" The great steward's expression was the most solemn, and he even felt a hint of fear. Su Yu nodded. Deputy Palace Master Qin Yuan was struck by the emerald green flames, and his soul was destroyed. However, the chief steward did not care about Qin Yuan's life or death at all. What he cared about was the emerald green flames that had suddenly appeared. Big trouble is coming. The great manager let out a long sigh. Suyu was puzzled. After all, the Greater One faction had a strong path master overseeing it. What would it be if it could be called a big trouble? Everyone, please leave quickly in case that flame appears again and injures others. The great manager personally sealed the entrance, then looked at Suyu. You were also one of the people who carried out the mission 3 months ago? How many people did you save? Li Yun and the others looked over, their eyes filled with anticipation. If the hall masters he saved were comparable to Yu Xiangwan, then their losses would be greatly reduced. I was discovered by the demonic elder, and I couldn't save too many people in time. Suyu looked regretful. Hearing this, the great manager, Li Yun, and the others could not hide their disappointment. Their expectations were too high. It was already a miracle that Yu Xiangwan had saved so many people. It was impossible for both of them to create miracles, right? All right, let them out. The great manager's worries were lifted once again. Walala, a group of people was poured out from Suyu's space storage device. In the end, the black mass of people poured out like mung beans from a bamboo tube. Ah! Hall Master Qin, Hall Master Qian, Hall Master Wan. My God, there were a total of 12 Hall Masters and Deputy Hall Masters, and more than 30 elite disciples. Li Yun was shocked. The great manager's dull eyes lit up in shock. The rest, almost all of them, were saved? They had only sent about 20 Hall Masters in total, and Yu Xiangwan had saved 7 people. Suyu had saved 12 people, and only 1 or 2 were not saved. Yu Xiangwan was also dumbfounded, indescribably shocked. She had expected that the number of people Suyu had saved would not be less than her, but she had never thought that it would be nearly half as many. The great manager laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, well done. In this way, the losses from the previous mission were almost zero. Suyu's contribution to the faction was too great. What's your name? The great manager asked. Suyu. The great manager laughed heartily, taking out a blank token and scribbling Suyu on it. Not only that, he also inserted a shred of his unique dark path energy into the token, marking it with 5 stars. 5-star disciple. Li Yun looked on in shock. Many of the spectating goalkeepers were green with envy. The Greater One faction's goalkeepers were divided into 9 levels, from 1-star to 9-star disciples. After 9-star disciples were the faction's deputy hall masters. How many of the goalkeepers had been stuck at 3-star disciples all their lives? Suyu, on the other hand, had gone from being a slave to a 5-star disciple. He had skyrocketed to become a mid-level disciple. Who wouldn't be envious and jealous? Yu Xiangwan had a bitter smile. Both of them had saved people, but he had only become a 1-star disciple, while Suyu had become a 5-star disciple. The difference was too great. However, he did not blame Suyu. Saving the many hall masters was Suyu's plan. Moreover, they had captured people based on their own abilities. He was not as capable as Suyu, so what was there to complain about? Congratulations, Brother Su. I might have to call you senior brother when we meet again. Yu Xiangwan smiled freely. Suyu laughed, thanking the great manager on the spot. From now on, you will be under the jurisdiction of the armament division. The great manager smiled as he left with the injured. The expressions of the crowd changed. Their gazes toward Suyu changed from jealousy and envy to gloating. Li Yun looked at Suyu, wanting to say something but hesitating. He sighed and left with his hands behind his back. When the crowd dispersed, only Yu Xiangwan stayed behind with a solemn expression. Brother Su, there were many higher-ups in the Greater One faction from my hometown. I will think of a way to ask them to use their connections to transfer you out of the armament division. Her voice was low, and there was an unconcealable worry in it. Suyu's expression had changed. He had read a lot of information about the Greater One faction. How could he not know where the armament division was? It was known as the Tomb of the Greater One faction. No one who joined the armament division had lived for more than 3 years. including the hall masters. They would die within 3 years without exception. Chapter 2488. This was because the Armament Division was where the Greater One sect fought for territory with the other factions. Once there was a change at the border, the entire Armament Division would be mobilized. Once mobilized, it would be a battle to the death. Hence, the death rate in the Armament Division was extremely high. In addition, in the recent 100 years, with the era on the verge of destruction, factions of all sizes had intensified the competition for resources, resulting in frequent wars. No matter how brave and skilled a member of the Armament Division was, they would not survive more than 3 years. You might survive this war, but what about the next one? What about the time after that? There would always be accidents, and once they happened, they would die. The Armament Division could be said to be the most important place in the Greater One sect, but it was also the place that no one wanted to go. Usually, other than the Division Master and Deputy Division Master, the ordinary members were people that the faction did not think highly of. No one could understand why Suyu, who had made such a huge contribution, was sent to the Armament Division where he would die. Brother Su, don't be too discouraged. I think the Great Keeper made this arrangement to convince the masses. Yu Xiangwan looked at the 5-star disciple token in Su Yu's hand. It is unprecedented for a slave to become a 5-star disciple. To prevent the faction members from criticizing you, you have been sent to the Armament Division for training. Perhaps, after a period of time, the Great Keeper will reassign you to another division. Yu Xiangwan's eyes were evasive. Su Yu held the token. Brother Yu, you and I are both sensible people. Why do we need to lie to ourselves? In the eyes of the Great Keeper, Su Yu's life was like that of an ant, easily crushed. Why would he still remember Su Yu and assign him to another division in the future? He just felt that giving Su Yu the status of a 5-star disciple was too shocking, so he casually threw him into the Armament Division. He had no intention of continuing to observe him. Yu Xiangwan sighed bitterly. All right, as long as Brother Su understands. But don't worry too much. From what I know, the Greater One sect just had a war with another faction a year ago. There shouldn't be another war in the near future. Su Yu nodded. Take care of yourself. You have just become a disciple from a slave, so you will inevitably be troubled. You too. The two looked at each other and left. Su Yu held the token and reported to the Armament Division. The area where the Armament Hall was located was empty because most of the personnel were training and practicing outside the headquarters, preparing for war at any time. Only a few people in charge of internal affairs were still there. I'm Su Yu, a new member, Su Yu reported. The person in charge took Su Yu's badge expressionlessly and carved the word, armament, on it. At the same time, he gave Su Yu 10 time crystals. Your salary for this month. Ordinary hall disciples could only receive 3 per month. However, the Armaments Hall gave him special treatment. There were 10 of them. It could be considered as a form of sympathy for the disciples of the Armament Hall. Also, head to the north of the city immediately to participate in the training. Su Yu nodded and rushed over with the badge in his hand. From afar, he could see a large group of black-armored warriors standing in an orderly manner, listening to the lecture of a golden-armored powerhouse on the stage. After a year of training, you all already possess the basic qualities of a qualified soldier. The golden-armored powerhouse said in a deafening voice, in the next period of time, you will be divided into groups to compete against each other. The first-place group will receive a rank increase in disciples, the second place will receive 1,000 time crystals, and the third place will receive 100 time crystals. It was extremely difficult for the other hall disciples to raise their own level. Usually, it takes 10 years for it to rise. But in the Armament Division, an ordinary competition could raise one's level. Moreover, the rest of the rewards were very generous, easily 1,000 time crystals. Ordinary disciples needed 30 years to accumulate so many time crystals. But thinking about it carefully, they were all people who were about to die. No matter how generous the rewards were, they would still die on the battlefield. Su Yu swept away the haze in his heart, his eyes suddenly brightening. It would take at least dozens of years to become a hall master in the Greater One sect, right? But in the armament division, perhaps the time could be greatly reduced. He suddenly realized that in the Greater One sect, the most suitable place for him was the armament division. The golden armored powerhouses quickly divided themselves into 100 groups according to the number of people. Each group had 3 people. The groups have been assigned, set off. The golden armored powerhouse gave the order. But suddenly, a shout came from one of the group. Reporting to Hall Master Yuan, the 8-star disciple Ma Xiaoguang is not here. Our group only has 2 people. The golden armored powerhouse's gaze was like lightning, his eyes cold as he shouted, "Where is Ma Xiaoguang?" His voice shook the air, causing the blood of the soldiers present to churn. Reporting to Hall Master Yuan, Ma Xiaoguang went out 10 days ago and has not returned, a deputy Hall Master level purple armored powerhouse replied, his eyes evasive. The people of the armament division were never allowed to go out as they pleased. Not to mention that he had been gone for 10 days. There was only one reason: he had betrayed them. The golden armored powerhouse's eyes were filled with killing intent. Traitor! Whoosh! An emerald account book appeared in his palm, with the names of every soldier on it. He found Ma Xiaoguang's location and used a pen to draw a line on it. A formless energy rushed out from the account book, disappearing into the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a young man in ragged clothes suddenly let out a muffled groan as his body exploded from the inside out. On the stage, the golden armored powerhouse indifferently kept the account book, coldly saying, "Betraying the Greater One sect, no matter how great your previous achievements, once you betray us, only death awaits. We will not tolerate it." Then, he looked toward the group that was missing one person. Just as he was about to make a decision, Su Yu suddenly landed, cupping his hands. Armament Division's new disciple, Su Yu, reporting. Su Yu stepped forward with the 5-star disciple badge in his hand, neither servile nor overbearing. The golden armored powerhouse glanced at the badge, nodding. Good timing. You will head to the 90th group. From today onwards, you will be a member of that group. Yes. Division Master. Su Yu arrived at the 90th group. There were only 2 members left in the group. One was a cold-looking woman from the 100 Flowers clan, who had the fragrance of flowers all over her body. The 100 Flowers clan was a second-rate clan, highly respected, and skilled in using flowers. The other was a rebellious Taoist youth, who carried a green cloud sword on his back. He stood upright, his expression indifferent, as if he was 1,000 miles away from everyone. Su Yu's arrival caused both of them to furrow their brows when they saw him. They obviously looked down on Su Yu. A human? The woman from the 100 Flowers clan did not hide her disgust, distancing herself as if Su Yu, a human from a 9th-rate clan, would pollute her. The Taoist youth closed his eyes proudly, saying indifferently, "Only 5-star? You might as well not have come." Su Yu was secretly amused. Both of their cultivations were pretty good, as they were both at the later stage of the Great Venerable Realm. Their disciples' levels were also very high, as they were both 7-star disciples. However, if they were to fight to the death, they probably wouldn't last more than half a move against Su Yu. You too, I am Su Yu. From today onwards, we will be members of the same group. I hope you can take care of each other. Su Yu smiled lightly. The woman from the 100 Flowers clan shot him a cold look. If you want us to take care of you, you'll have to show us what you're capable of first. The Taoist youth nodded his head. Right at that moment, a loud and clear horn sounded, signaling the start of the competition. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders. He didn't need to show them his abilities. However, he had to get the first place. Chapter 2489. The bugle horn sounded. Many of the trained goalkeepers formed groups of 3 and spread out in all directions. The 100-Flower Clan lady and the Taoist youth had a tacit understanding, walking side by side. They had no intention of bringing Su Yu along. Su Yu had just entered the army camp and did not even know what the competition was about. Seeing the two of them leave, unwilling to cooperate with him, Su Yu had no choice but to pick a group and quickly follow them. They traveled hundreds of millions of miles. The members of the group finally arrived at a large river. There was a boat with a black awning floating on the river. One could faintly see a highly intelligent puppet on the boat, its fighting abilities extremely strong. The three of them stopped by the river, staring at the black awning boat. "Senior Chen, the first puppet is right in front of us. Let's begin." The junior beside him was eager. But Senior Chen looked behind him, coldly grunting. "Sir, aren't you being a little too impatient by preparing to attack before you even get the puppet?" The other two turned back to see that after they stopped, Su Yu, who was following closely behind them, also stopped. Su Yu said calmly, "I just want to see how the so-called competition goes." If he wanted to attack them secretly, why would he follow them so openly? Senior Chen creased his brows. "That better be the case. When we move, you better not do anything else. Otherwise, you alone might not be able to handle the three of us." Seeing that Su Yu was indeed a newcomer, Senior Chen reluctantly believed him. Su Yu smiled but did not speak. He leaned against a tree by the river, silently watching what they were doing. "Move!" Senior Chen let out a low grunt, taking the lead and jumping onto the black awning boat. His expression was grave. Not only did he take out a Tao artifact, he also unleashed his domain. With a long sword in hand, he slashed the black awning boat from the middle. With a crash, the black awning boat was split into pieces. Only the puppet within was unharmed. It sat cross-legged on the surface of the river, a token with the word "Fire" on it hanging from its chest. "If you want to get the Divine Fire token, that will depend on the abilities of the three of you," the puppet said, suddenly slapping its palms toward the surface of the river. The entire river was lifted into the air, like 100,000 feet long snake. Wild snake spitting mist. The 100,000-meter-long snake soared into the air and spat out a large amount of water mist. Everything in its path was corroded by the water mist. Senior Brother Chen shouted, "Sword edge horizon!" With a sweep of his sword, waves of sword light rippled out like water ripples, repelling the mist. At the same time, the other two junior sisters also joined forces to attack. A ring-shaped Tao artifact and a domain technique attacked the puppet at the same time. Total annihilation. The puppet held the giant snake in its hand and spun it around madly. It drew a boundless trail in the air. Senior Martial Brother Chen's expression changed. He placed his sword in front of his chest to block this terrifying attack. Even so, he was still pushed back 3,000 feet. The two junior sisters were in an even worse state. They were shaken to the point of vomiting blood. "Senior brother, what's going on with this puppet?" The two junior sisters were astonished. According to past training experience, no matter how strong the puppet was, it would be difficult for it to defeat the three of them together. However, in the current situation, the puppet was suppressing all three of them without falling into a disadvantageous position. Senior Brother Chen's expression was extremely gloomy. "I'm afraid we've run into heavenly puppets. Usually, only earth puppets would be fought in the competition. Only when the sects were about to fight would they increase the difficulty of the competition and place a few more powerful heavenly puppets. And heavenly puppets were existences whose cultivation had reached the level of Xian Dao Lord. They were not existences that the three yellow Dao Lords could contend against." "That's right, I'm a heavenly puppet." The puppet laughed heartily as it stretched out its palm, and a badge identical to the one on its chest appeared. "If you can withstand 10 of my attacks, you'll pass the trial, and I'll grant you 2 badges. 10 moves? Yes." Hope reignited in Senior Brother Chen's eyes. He said, "Junior sisters, let's fight." "Yes." Knowing that they could obtain 2 tokens, The two girls regained their courage and fought with all their might. This time, the three of them used their Tao artifacts and domains. They even used up their powerful talismans. However, the puppet's strength still exceeded their expectations. After 5 moves, the puppet used its lawlessness and suppressed the three of them to the ground. Too weak. You can't pass my test. The puppet withdrew its boundless magic power and said disappointedly. Senior Brother Chen's face was full of indignation. They had sacrificed so much, but in the end it was all for naught. The two junior sisters were dejected. Perhaps the supergroup known as the Sun, Moon, and Stars combination would be overjoyed to meet the heavenly puppet. But if they met it, they could only accept defeat. Let's go to the next place. Senior Brother Chen sighed. He had no choice but to give up. The heavenly puppet was indeed not something they could deal with. The heavenly puppet shook its head and sat down cross-legged again. Right at that moment, a teasing voice sounded. Why don't you give me 2 tokens? The heavenly puppet opened its eyes and looked at Suyu, who was walking over with his hands clasped behind his back. It asked, Where are your teammates? I alone should be enough. There's no need to trouble the other two. Suyu stepped onto the river. The heavenly puppet nodded slightly. All right, but you only have 1 chance. Since you are alone, if you can withstand 3 moves from me, you will pass and get 2 tokens. Suyu shook his head lightly. 3 moves is too little? The heavenly puppet scowled. Seeing that you are alone, I reduced it to 3rd young master. Don't be content. Suyu stopped in his tracks and said indifferently, What I mean is, I don't need 3 moves to deal with you. What? The heavenly puppet thought it had heard it wrong. A teammate was boasting about taking care of it with 1 move? Senior Brother Chen and the other 2 on the riverbank were also stunned for a while. They had not seen such an arrogant soldier for many years. Even the strongest member of the Sun, Moon, and Stars combination would not dare to boast about taking care of the heavenly puppet with 1 move. Haha, all right, I'll fight with you. The heavenly puppet laughed. It reached out with its hands again, trying to capture the river. However, it was surprised to find that no matter how hard it tried, the river beneath it did not budge an inch. It was like the earth itself. What's going on? The heavenly puppet was stunned. Suddenly, it seemed to have understood something. It lifted its head abruptly to look at Suyu and said in a deep voice, Could it be that Suyu had suppressed the river and prevented it from being captured? Suyu's hands were still clasped behind his back. He said indifferently, Do you want to use this river? All right, I'll give it to you. Roar. All of a sudden, the whole river twisted crazily, and it started to churn violently. Giant waves slammed into the sky, slamming the heavenly puppet onto the ground. You're lawless. The heavenly puppet sensed danger and roared loudly. A giant ball appeared in front of it, shielding it within it. However, layers of giant waves came crashing down incessantly, smashing the ball into pieces. The heavenly puppet was horrified. It stared at Suyu. You are Xian. As a puppet, you'd better keep your mouth shut. Amidst the giant waves, Suyu's figure could not be seen at all. Chapter 2490. In an instant, a frightening chill radiated in all directions with Suyu's feet as the epicenter. In just a few moments, the entire river, along with the heavenly puppet, were frozen into ice. The heavenly puppet maintained its shocked expression, standing there motionless. Looks like I've won, Suyu said. The frozen river thawed instantly. The sky-high waves crashed down from the sky. When the waves subsided, Suyu's figure was finally revealed. What caused Senior Brother Chen and the other 2 to suck in a breath of cold air was, Suyu was still standing there, his hands behind his back, not moving an inch. Senior Brother Chen, who is he? He had easily defeated the heavenly puppet with just 2 moves. He did not even need to use his full power. This was several times more powerful than the Sun, Moon, and Star combination. Senior Brother Chen's face was filled with shock, and he couldn't even speak. The defeated heavenly puppet was surprised. Then, it walked forward with a wry smile and presented 2 tokens. The divine fire token is yours. After saying this, it turned around and sank to the bottom of the river. Fumbling with the 2 tokens, Suyu slowly walked back to the shore, coming up to the 3 of them. Senior Brother Churn subconsciously raised his guard, shielding his 2 junior sisters behind him. His eyes were filled with fear. What do you want? Swoosh. What Senior Brother Churn did not expect was that Suyu did not do anything to them. Instead, he threw one of the tokens to them. This token is yours. You just have to tell me the details of the competition. Senior Brother Churn and the other 2 were stunned. They did not expect Suyu to give them a token so easily, just to ask why. Suppressing the fear in his heart, Senior Brother Churn said, Senior Brother, the competition is divided into 2 parts. The first part is to obtain the Divine Fire tokens. The second part is to use the Divine Fire tokens to open a treasure chest. The treasure chests contain different amounts of crystals. Finally, each group will determine their ranking based on the number of crystals they obtain. That's all? Suyu had thought that the so-called competition would be filled with fights. How many Divine Fire tokens can a group get? Suyu asked. No limit. As long as you have the ability, you can get all the Divine Fire tokens. Upon hearing this, Suyu realized that he had been too simple-minded. There would still be fights, centered around the Divine Fire tokens. The 3 of you must be very familiar with the distribution of the Divine Fire tokens, right? Suyu asked. The 3 of them had come here directly, so it was obvious that they had participated in this kind of competition more than once. Senior Brother Churn hesitated. Kind of. Their goal was to find 3 Divine Fire tokens. If he led the way for Suyu, he would not have time to look for the other Divine Fire badges, and his ranking would definitely be at the bottom. Lead the way. Of the 10 tokens, I will take 70% while you take 30%. Hearing this, Senior Brother Churn was still in deep thought, but the 2 junior sisters were already overjoyed. With this extremely powerful human race powerhouse holding the line, who could win against them? Suyu had no choice but to agree. We agree. The 2 junior sisters readily agreed. Senior Brother Churn had no choice but to agree. The 4 of them reached an agreement and formed a temporary 4-man team to head to their next destination. When he arrived at the place, he found a puppet hidden in the lava. Suyu did not reply. You brother Suyu's words, he with, they were. Suyu did not answer. He glared at the puppet. What are you waiting for? Give it to me. What surprised Senior Brother Churn and the other 2 was that the fierce-looking puppet actually swam over obediently and gave the Divine Fire badge to Suyu. Let's go to the next location. Suyu took the token and left without looking back. Senior Brother Churn and the other 2 felt like they were dreaming. That puppet was a great venerable realm puppet. Although it was nothing to them, this was not how they were supposed to play with it, right? Was it over with a glare? The 3 felt like they were dreaming as they led Suyu to several locations. They did not stop at any location for more than a few breaths' time. Suyu had not made a move from beginning to end, yet he had managed to intimidate a group of puppets into submission. Until they reached an icy peak. When they arrived, 3 figures were fighting a heaven puppet. In the entire armament hall, the only ones who had the ability to fight against the heavenly puppets were the number 1 team, the sun, moon, and stars. Their team leader, Ri Zhongtian, was the strongest. He was about to break through the Xian Dao master level, and was a 9-star disciple. Every move he made was immensely powerful. Senior Brother Churn saw the 3 of them and said solemnly, Senior Brother Su, let's forget about this place. Since Ri Yueshing came first, we have no chance. The 2 junior sisters were the same. They did not want to fight Ri Yueshing head-on. What are you afraid of? Suyu said calmly. Since it is a competition, we should have the courage to fight. They thought Suyu was going to fight personally, and their spirits were lifted. To be honest, they could not figure out Suyu's strength. Even when facing the heaven puppet, they could not figure out his move. Perhaps they could feast their eyes on him now. You guys go ahead, I will hold the line from behind, Suyu said. Us? The faces of Senior Brother Chen and the other two froze. Senior Brother Su, it is not that we are belittling ourselves, but Ryueshing is indeed too powerful. Before they could finish, Suyu waved his sleeves, and the three of them were swept away, falling behind Ryueshing. Ryueshing, who was fighting the heaven puppet, was furious. How dare you attack us while we are fighting the heaven puppet? Ri Zhongtian turned his head and shouted, I will hold off the heaven puppet, the two of you take care of those three. Now that things had come to this, Senior Brother Chen and the other two could only bite the bullet and fight. Let's fight. The three of them gave it their all. They had expected that once they started fighting, they would be at a complete disadvantage. Unexpectedly, as soon as the three of them attacked, they found that the famous Yu Hun and Xing Fei were sent flying with blood spurting out of their mouths. What's going on, my body? The two junior sisters looked at their palms in shock. The power of a Xian Path Master had appeared in their palms, fusing with their bodies. Senior Brother Chen looked back at Suyu in shock. Could he be a Xian Path Master? But before he could think too much, Ri Zhongtian sensed that something was wrong behind him, and he pounced on the three of them with a furious roar. What trick did you use? Yu Hun and Xing Fei were only slightly weaker than him. They were the top existences in the armament division, so how could they be defeated? Senior Brother Chen clenched his teeth and said, Junior sisters, let's join forces. The three of them attacked together, and the powerful Xian Path energy suppressed Ri Zhongtian. You! Ri Zhongtian roared in anger and fought back with the heaven-shaking style. When he attacked, he seemed to have the power of a Xian Path Master. Senior Brother Chen and the other two relied on the Xian Path energy in their bodies to fight for a long time before they finally knocked him off the snowy peak. Yu Hun and Xing Fei were also captured by them. Thank you, Senior Brother Su, for your help. Senior Brother Chen turned around and bowed to Suyu with cupped fists. Unexpectedly, Suyu looked disappointed. You are too weak. It took you so long to deal with Ryueshing and Xing. His Xian Path energy was much stronger than that of an ordinary Xian Path Master. He should have defeated Ri Zhongtian long ago if he had given each of them a wisp of it. Unexpectedly, after such a long time, he was not satisfied. Chapter 2491. They were both members of the armament division, but the gap between him and Senior Brother Su was too great. It was so great that he felt hopeless. He had only felt such a feeling from the master of the armament division. Suyu looked straight ahead and came before Yu Hun and Xing Fei. He then searched their bodies and found 6 tokens. Together with the 10 tokens he had collected along the way, he had a total of 16 tokens. Finally, he looked at the restless heaven puppet and waved at him. Hey, throw me those 2 tokens. He sounded like he was ordering a pet dog. What shocked Yu Hun and Xing Fei was that the heaven puppet, who had fought with them just now, was as obedient as a puppy. Oh, okay, I'll give them to you right away. He threw the 2 tokens to Suyu with both hands and hid immediately. It was as if he was afraid that Suyu would attack him. The strange scene made Yu Hun and Xing Fei's minds go blank. Now, Suyu had a total of 18 tokens. Suyu threw 5 tokens to Senior Brother Chen and said, Guide fee. The 3 of them were overjoyed. Including what they already had, they had 6 tokens, which was far beyond their expectations. Let's go back and open the treasure chests. Suyu waved his hand and left with the 3 of them. As soon as they left the mountain, they ran into the woman from the 100 Flower Clan and the young Taoist man who were still searching for treasure chests. The woman from the 100 Flower Clan looked at Suyu and Yu Hun and Xing Fei beside him. You're quite smart, knowing to follow others and take advantage of the situation. She mistakenly thought that Suyu had followed Senior Brother Chen's team. The young Taoist man was disappointed. Since it's a competition, you should have your own fighting spirit. What's the point of picking up scraps from others? Senior Brother Chun recognized the woman from the 100-Flower Clan and the young Taoist man. Their team was second only to Ri Xing and Yu. Be it the defected soldier or the two of them, they were all powerful people. But after witnessing Su Yu's uncanny strength, the strength of the two people in front of them was not worthy of their attention. Hearing them mock Su Yu, Senior Brother Chun stepped forward and said seriously, "What nonsense are you talking about? Senior Brother Su is—" He did not finish his sentence because Su Yu waved his hand and stopped him. Summer insects cannot be explained with ice, so there is no need to explain too much to others, Su Yu said concisely. It didn't matter what the Centauria woman and the Taoist youth thought of him, because he had never intended to treat the two of them as companions. Senior brother? The woman from the 100-Flower Clan raised her eyebrows slightly. She could sense something unusual in Senior Brother Chen's words. However, he immediately shook his head. Based on his preconceived notions, he felt that there must be some misunderstanding. It's good that you know your place, the heavenly spirit path, and I really don't want to have anything to do with you. The 100-Flower Race woman said bluntly, I hope that after this competition, you will voluntarily ask the Hall Master to switch groups. The Taoist youth said indifferently, it's important to know one's own limit. There's no benefit in trying to curry favor with the two of us. When it comes to the battlefield, it will only cause your death. He didn't even bother to hide his threat. The two of them were very resolute, and they refused to be in the same group as Su Yu. This was because Su Yu's performance had greatly disappointed them. As long as he worked a little harder, he could reluctantly accept it. However, they followed the other groups and ate the leftovers. They did not have the will to fight. What was the point of keeping such people? Senior Brother Chun and the other two were dumbfounded. They looked at the self-righteous woman from the 100-Flower Clan and the heavenly spirit path strangely. It was as if they were looking at a starving beggar who had thrown away a golden house. Or it was a martial artist who had given up on the Gai Tian legacy. The woman from the 100-Flower Clan was puzzled. The group of Senior Brother Chen and the other two really made her feel strange. Did I do something wrong? Or is someone plotting against me? Are they waiting to laugh at me? With that thought in mind, the woman from the 100-Flower Clan left quickly, looking for the next puppet. Senior Brother Su, you are so powerful. Why are you being bullied by these two idiots? The two junior sisters were indignant on Su Yu's behalf. The sun, moon, and stars had been destroyed by Su Yu with a snap of his fingers. The woman from the 100-Flower Clan and the heavenly spirit path were nothing to him. He could scare them into prostrating on the ground with just a look. Do you think I'm angry? Su Yu's expression was very calm. Like how a giant elephant would be angered by the provocation of an ant? Of course not. The three of them immediately understood what Su Yu meant and sighed. An expert was indeed an expert. At Su Yu's current level, he could look down on all the other warriors. I hope you can keep the pleasant experience between us a secret forever. Su Yu looked at the three of them and smiled. Senior Brother Chun and the other two nodded hurriedly. Who would dare say no? Otherwise, the experience would turn from pleasant to unpleasant. The treasure chests are all at Mount Fangtsuan. Under Senior Brother Chen's lead, they arrived at the place where the treasure chests were placed. It was a mountain range filled with poisonous creatures, and danger lurked everywhere. The private rooms were scattered all over the mountain. Those who held the divine fire insignia had to personally go up the mountain to retrieve the treasure chests from the danger and open them. Next, they would have to split up. Senior Brother Su, I am very fortunate to have received your care along the way. When we return to the faction, I will definitely pay you a visit to thank you. Senior Brother Chen's original name was Chen Qiankuan, and he was very grateful. The two junior sisters also felt that this was like a dream, and they were very grateful. All right. The three of them split up. Su Yu held the 13 divine fire insignia, and each headed to Mount Fangtsuan to look for the treasure chest. The danger of this place was not great for him. Su Yu was familiar with the route and he found a few treasure chests. When he reached the middle of the mountain, he unintentionally heard a secret transmission. Because he had mastered the space realm, he was very sensitive to the transmission of sound. Jing Xian heard it, and her expression changed slightly. Have the treasure chests been placed properly? A familiar voice entered Su Yu's ears. It was the voice of the military division's master. Everything is ready. The one who replied was a deputy master of the military division. The master sighed. The battles are endless, and the flames of war are rising again at the border. Sigh. Master need not worry too much. According to the faction's rules, you can be transferred to another division after staying in the military division for 10 years. It has only been a year since the last great battle, and there should not be any battles in the near future. The master shook his head. You do not know. It is said that the border, however, the hall master wanted to say something but hesitated. He seemed to be vigilant and stopped talking. He only said, let's choose the outstanding winner of this competition first. After the secret discussion, the two left immediately. When Su Yu heard this, he was shocked. From the master's words, it seemed that the border was not peaceful. On the surface, this competition was training, but in fact, it was to select the most capable warriors to carry out missions at the border? It would have been fine if he did not know, but now that he knew, how could Su Yu not take action? He immediately threw away all the treasure chests he had obtained, not leaving a single one behind. Compared to the promotion of a goalie's level, his life was more important. How could the border matter, which even the master was so secretive about, be simple? No wonder so many heaven puppets appeared this time. It turns out that there are unusual movements at the border, Su Yu thought to himself. 2 days later, the competition was over. Each member took the crystals they had obtained from the treasure chests and returned to the military division ground. The master and 2 deputy masters were already waiting there, arranging for people to carefully record the crystals obtained by each group. 100 Horse Path Group, step forward, the registrar called out to Su Yu's group. The 100 Flower Clan woman, Tian Ling Dao, and Su Yu stepped forward. The 100 Flower Clan woman and Tian Ling Dao took out a total of 50 crystals. They had gained a lot this time, obtaining 5 divine fire badges. Any more? The registrar asked. The 100 Flower Clan woman and Tian Ling Dao looked at Su Yu expectantly, but Su Yu only shook his head apologetically. You can't even get leftovers. The 100 Flower Clan woman was completely disappointed. She warned, remember what I said, don't follow us anymore. The registrar was gratified. 100 Horse Path is temporarily ranked first. Even with Su Yu's burden, they still easily won the first place. Su Yu sighed silently. This first place was not so easy to get. Then, it was Chen Qiankuan's group's turn. They uncharacteristically obtained 60 crystals, setting a new record and firmly occupying the first place. This greatly surprised many of the soldiers. The overall strength of Chen Qiankuan's group was only average, so it was unexpected that they could win the first place this time. The 100 Flower Clan woman and Tian Ling Dao were even more resentful of Su Yu. They had obtained 6 badges, but Su Yu had not even obtained 1 divine fire badge by following them. He was really incompetent. The following rankings were uneventful, and not many people were surprised. That was until Ryueshing's result, who obtained 0 crystals, completely shocked the audience. The golden-armored hall master's eyes were full of disbelief. He waved his hand and said, Ryueshing, the 3 of you come with me. I have something to ask you in private. Ryueshing followed him to the backstage. No one knew what they were talking about, but it was obvious that Ryueshing's expression was not good. Finally, when the tabulation was completed, the rankings were completed. First place, Qiankuan Group. Each group member will be promoted to a first-grade disciple. Second place, 100 Horse Path. Each group member will receive 1,000 time crystals. Third place, Yun Lei Dian. Each group member will receive 300 time crystals. The rest of the group members will receive 10 time crystals as a reward. The competition should have ended there, but the 100-flower clan woman of the 100-horse path said angrily, "Hall Master, I have something to say." The golden-armored Hall Master nodded. "By Lianxin, right?" Bai Lianxin looked at Su Yu coldly and said, "The new member of our group, Su Yu, is unable to cooperate with us. Hall Master, please make the decision and replace him." Hearing this, the audience was in an uproar. She was trying to embarrass Su Yu in public. "Tian Lingdao, what about you?" the Hall Master asked another group member. Tian Lingdao said without hesitation, "I agree with Bai Lianxin. Su Yu is indeed not suitable for our group." He was being despised by the whole group. Many people were already gloating and watching the interesting events after the competition with great interest. The Hall Master finally looked at Su Yu and said, "What do you want to say?" Chapter 2492. If he was expelled from the group, he could avoid being assigned to dangerous missions at the border. "I have no objections." Even Su Yu, who had been expelled, had nothing to say. The Hall Master had no choice but to announce, "Fine, Su Yu will be removed from the 100-horse training group." The announcement made Su Yu feel slightly relieved. Bai Lianxin and Tian Lingdao also got what they wanted and no longer looked at Su Yu. The next thing to do was to dismiss the competitors. "Also, I have something to announce." As expected, the Hall Master only revealed his true intentions at the end. He looked solemn and dignified as he said, "According to reliable information we have, suspicious people have appeared at the border and are investigating several mines at the border. I have decided to send 10 teams to investigate at the border. Once there are signs of a large-scale invasion, report it to the faction immediately." Suddenly, the noisy troop calling ground became as quiet as an empty mountain. Everyone's eyes were filled with seriousness. The Hall Master said slowly, "Everyone, don't worry. It's just an investigation, not a head-on battle. Besides, based on our understanding of the situation, the other party has very few people. There are less than 10 of them. Your task is to determine if there are other large groups other than them. As long as the task is completed successfully, you will be promoted by 2 grades when you return." Hearing this, the soldiers heaved a sigh of relief and looked forward to it. Many of them were 7-star disciples. Once they were promoted by 2 grades, they would become 9-star disciples, the highest grade. The 8-star disciples and even the 9-star disciples were even more excited. If they were promoted by 2 grades, they could directly be promoted to the level of a deputy hall master. The armament hall could not accommodate more deputy hall masters, so they could take the opportunity to be transferred to other halls. This caused many high-level disciples to be eager to give it a try, and their spirits were unprecedentedly high. Only Su Yu looked on coldly from the sidelines, disapproving. Was it really that easy? Judging from the conversation between the hall master and the deputy hall master, it was obviously not. He did not want to get involved in this mess. "Since the task is dangerous, I have decided to send the top 9 and the last in this competition, Ryueshing, to participate." Hearing this, the whole place was filled with sighs of regret. If they had worked harder in the competition, they might have had a chance to enter the top 10. Su Yu was completely relieved. He was finally safe. He had left the 100-horse training group in time and was not inferior to the top 10 members, so he could avoid this disaster. However, to Su Yu's surprise, the clan master added, "In addition, I will add 1 more person." Who? Why was there an additional addition? Could it be that the other party was special? "That is the new 5-star disciple, Su Yu." The clan master smiled and said to Su Yu. He then clapped his hands and said, "Congratulations, you have obtained the right to carry out the mission at the border." However, Su Yu wasn't happy at all. He even had the urge to hit someone. He had been keeping such a low profile, and it wasn't easy for him to get out of the top 10 team members. How could he suddenly be called out by the hall master? Suddenly, he noticed that the members of the Sun, Moon, and Star unit that Ri Zhongtian was in were secretly looking at him. He instantly understood. It was probably the Hall Master who had called the three of them to talk behind the scenes, and they learned about the many things that had happened on the snow-capped peak. The reason why the Qianquan group was so powerful was closely related to Su Yu. That was why the clan master was extra lenient on Su Yu. He would never let go of a potential outstanding warrior like him. According to the information I have, Su Yu's performance in the competition was extremely outstanding, far better than any of the other warriors. Therefore, I will give him an additional special reward, which is a promotion of the disciple level by 1 level, and a reward of 1,000 time crystals. This was equal to the total reward of the first and second place. What? All of a sudden, the crowd was stirred up. Why? It's unfair. He didn't even get a single divine fire insignia, so how could he get a special reward? Even Bai Lianxin and Tian Lingdao's eyes were red with jealousy. They absolutely couldn't accept that Su Yu, who had dragged them down, would get a reward that was far better than theirs. The clan master pressed his palm down, and the strong pressure suppressed the voices of resistance. He then said solemnly, "Why? The divine fire insignia he has is twice as many as any other team here. Absorb." The clan master grabbed the air, and the 13 divine fire insignia hidden in Su Yu's space storage device seemed to have sensed it. They forcibly broke free from the storage device, flew out, and floated above Su Yu's head. 13? How did he get them? It shouldn't be. Just finding the 13 puppets took more than half of his time. How could he have the time to fight with the puppets and defeat them all? Unless the puppets couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. But the possibility of that was slim. Everyone was discussing it. The clan master said sternly, "The competition has never cared about the method, only the result. Since he got so many divine fire insignia, it is enough to prove his outstanding ability. Hence, he is given a special reward." As such, although everyone was indignant, they couldn't refute it. They could only watch as Su Yu's 5-star disciple insignia became 6 stars. At the same time, he received 1,000 time crystals. Warriors whose names have been called, you have 3 days to prepare. 3 days later, you will set off on time. The clan master waved his sleeves and announced the scouting operation that would take place in 3 days. The crowd dispersed. Su Yu also left in a hurry. But obviously there were people who didn't want to give up. "Surname's Su, you're deliberately making things difficult for us, aren't you?" Bai Lian said angrily. Su Yu, who was in the same team, had obtained so many divine fire insignia, so why did he hide them? He had caused them to lose the first place. Tian Lingdao's eyes were filled with lightning as she scolded, "Su Yu, give me a reason why you hid the divine fire insignia." They were angry, but Su Yu's mood wasn't any better. He was already in a bad mood after being called to carry out a dangerous mission. Now that he was being harassed by the two of them, he decided to shed all pretense of cordiality. He said indifferently, "You keep calling me a human, calling me leftovers. You keep saying that you look down on me, a human. Why should I help you?" Su Yu's patience with them was more than enough. "Don't challenge my bottom line again." Su Yu warned them casually, then left with his hands clasped behind his back. Bai Lianxin and Tian Lingdao were furious. "Lowly human, what right do you have to be angry at me?" Bai Lianxin's eyes were filled with anger. Tian Lingdao's eyes turned cold as well. "I've said it before, on the battlefield, he won't even know how he died." Su Yu returned to the armaments hall, and came to the cavern that belonged to him. His eyes changed a few times, and Su Yu took out an iron ring. The iron ring had been left behind by Xie Sanren after his death, along with a token with the word "space-time" engraved on it. The iron ring was quite mysterious, and Su Yu had yet to fully comprehend it. After trying again and failing to discover the mystery of the iron ring, Su Yu threw it into the space storage device. At the same time, he raised his hand and waved. A 9 serenities crystal that weighed 100 pounds appeared in front of him. Inside it was a creature the size of a human head. For this mission at the border, Suyu could only try his best to increase the number of life-saving items he had. Apart from the 8 great realms, which could only be used as a last resort, he should also prepare other means just in case. Suyu held a special tool in his hand and hacked down with it. The 9 serenities crystal was split into 2 halves, revealing the creature that was sealed within. The creature had no signs of life and was already dead. Suyu tried to study the beast, but just as he was about to touch it with his finger, he was suddenly alarmed. A strong sense of danger descended without warning. Without thinking, Suyu instantly used the space realm to move away from the cavern. Just as he was about to leave, a burst of emerald light suddenly shone brightly in his cavern. It was extremely dazzling. Then, it quickly dimmed. Suyu's pupils constricted fiercely. Is that the emerald fire of the 9 serenities? How could he forget the terrifying emerald fire that he had encountered in the depths of the abandoned mine? The soul of Qin Yuan, who was at the same level as the Xian Dao master, had been incinerated by the emerald fire on the spot. But why did the fire appear in his secret room? Is it that creature? Suyu was extremely shocked. After waiting for a long time to make sure that there was no more emerald fire in the secret room, he carefully returned to the secret room. He checked the creature again. The creature's body was shriveled, without any flesh or blood. Only a skeleton was left. However, the skeleton of the corpse was faintly green. There was still a large amount of emerald fire of the 9 serenities in its body. Suyu suddenly felt troubled. What was the use of this thing? He couldn't touch it and it was worthless. He didn't understand why someone would sell this kind of 9 serenities crystal at a high price. Just as he was wondering how to deal with the corpse, the little Kylan suddenly jumped out and sniffed. It said, "What is this? It smells very good." Silently, it stared at the corpse with bright emerald light in its eyes. "Master, what is this? It looks delicious." Suyu's eyes flashed. "Do you dare to eat it? Don't blame me for not warning you. This corpse hides a very dangerous emerald fire. I think I should be able to eat it." The little Kylan rolled its eyes, as if it was afraid that Suyu would go back on his words. It pounced on the corpse and held it in its mouth. Then, it raised its neck and swallowed it. Suyu was shocked. "Aren't you afraid of being poisoned to death?" Burp. The little Kylan burped and rubbed its swollen belly with its front hoof. "I'm a little full." Then, the little Kylan suddenly fell to the ground, its belly facing the sky and its limbs twitching. It looked like it was about to die. Suyu's heart sank. He immediately stepped forward, ready to use the power of the domain to forcefully pull out the corpse that had been swallowed. However, the little Kylan suddenly turned around and laughed while holding its belly. "Look at how scared you are." It turned out that it was deliberately teasing Suyu. At this moment, Suyu's forehead was full of black lines. He stepped forward and kicked it. The little Kylan with its round belly bounced back and forth in the secret room. Only then did the little Kylan surrender. "Don't hit me anymore. It took me so much effort to digest it, and now it will be beaten out by you again." It couldn't help but burp again, as if it was responding to its own words. However, there was a faint wisp of the 9 underworld's jade flame in that burp. Fortunately, Suyu reacted quickly and dodged it. Otherwise, if the wisp of flame invaded his soul, the consequences would be terrible. "You can digest the 9 underworld's jade flame?" Suyu was shocked. The little Kylan was stunned. 9 underworld's jade flame? Are you talking about this? It shook its plump body, and a layer of emerald green flame emerged from its scales. It dyed its purple color green. Suyu's face fell. Chapter 2493. How did you do it? This fire had a pervasive destructive power against the soul. How could the little Kylan be immune to it? The little Kylan scratched its head and said, "It should be my chaotic energy." It seems to have refined these emerald green flames and made them a part of my body." As it spoke, the little Kylan's scales closed, and the 9 underworld green flames disappeared. It then opened up and released them again. Back and forth, it was like a small fireball that flickered indefinitely. Suyu was surprised. He had thought that the little Kylan's chaotic energy only had a strong devouring effect. Now it seemed that it could assimilate other forms of energy and make them its own. If the little Kylan launched a surprise attack and spat out a mouthful of 9 underworld green flames, what kind of enemy would be safe and sound? Unless they were much stronger than Suyu, they would at least lose a layer of skin even if they did not die. Suyu looked at the little Kylan with a gleam in his eyes. "What are you doing?" The little Kylan shrank its neck when it met Suyu's malicious gaze. Suyu revealed a faint smile. "I'm wondering when I'll be able to cut open your stomach and study your structure. Then I'll eat some Kylan meat." Hearing that, the little Kylan immediately bared its teeth. "Ah, I didn't know you were such a master." Suyu let out a long sigh with a smile, a meaningful look in his eyes. He wondered if all the objects sealed in the 9 underworld odd crystals contained the 9 underworld green flames. If that was the case, wouldn't it be easy for the little Kylan to grow? As long as there were enough time crystals, he could buy countless 9 underworld odd crystals. The border mission in 3 days has an additional layer of insurance. Suyu looked at the little Kylan and heaved a sigh of relief. 2 days later, Suyu was preparing for the trip when Yu Xiangwan came to find him. "Brother Su, I heard that your armament division is going to send soldiers to the border for a spy mission?" Yu Xiangwan asked with concern. Suyu looked helpless. "Yes, I am one of the selected people." Yu Xiangwan's expression turned serious. After a moment of silence, she took out a tortoise shell with mysterious runes. "I got this from a strong man from the same hometown. It might be able to help you at a critical moment." She had heard that Suyu was going to carry out a mission and had specially found an escaped treasure for him. Suyu was moved. The two of them hadn't known each other for a long time, but there was a sense of mutual appreciation between them. "Brother Yu, I appreciate your kindness. If you have any problems in the future, you can look for me." Suyu accepted the gift solemnly. Yu Xiangwan laughed. "No problem." He took out a map and passed it to Suyu. He then said, "I've collected the maps of the mines that you went to. You can have a look at them in advance." Suyu was surprised. In his plan, he was also prepared to make a trip to the Hall of Ancient Records to check the map of the nearby area. He didn't expect Yu Xiangwan to have the same thought as him. "I won't disturb you, Brother Su. Prepare well. When you come back, I'll give you a surprise," Yu Xiangwan said mysteriously. "Could it be something good?" "Hee, then no matter what, I will come back alive." After he left, Suyu started to study the map. That border was a large mine that had been discovered in recent years. The amount of 9 nether crystals stored underground was an astronomical figure. But the faction only occupied it and did not start to excavate it because there were many unknown dangers in the mine. It was said that a creature called the 9 nether demon lived in the mine. The singing of this creature was beautiful and moving. Once heard, one would be involuntarily attracted to the depths of the mine and eventually get lost, never to return. The Greater One sect had sent many strong men, but apart from suffering heavy casualties, there was no sign of the mine being cleaned up. Hence, it was shelved. Unexpectedly, the existence of the mine still alarmed the nearby Jingtian sect. A great battle broke out between the two, and the Greater One sect won. Now that a year had passed, there was another unknown force exploring the vicinity of the mine. The 9 nether demon? Suyu touched his chin and nodded slightly. A day later, Suyu arrived at the military division. Everyone arrived one after another. Senior brother Su, Chen Qiankuan and his 2 junior sisters welcomed him with a smile. "Is there anything we can help you with this operation?" The 3 of them had not expected the danger of this mission. They thought it was an extremely ordinary mission and were very relaxed. Senior Brother Chen, you're too kind. I wouldn't dare to help you, but if you don't mind, we can continue to form a team. That way we can help each other, and it will undoubtedly be much safer, Su Yu said. He felt that Chen Qiankuan and the other two were not bad. If he stayed with them, he could help them to the best of his ability in the face of danger. Hearing that, Chen Qiankuan and the other two were naturally overjoyed. In contrast, Bai Lianxin and Tian Lingdao were shooting cold glances at him from time to time. In the competition 3 days ago, Chen Qiankuan and the other two, who had won first place, had successfully been promoted to 8-star disciples. If they had won that ranking, both of them would have become 9-star disciples. If they had performed well in this mission, they would have been promoted to deputy division masters. In this way, they could easily be transferred out of the military division. Unfortunately, all of this had failed because of Su Yu's deliberate hindrance. Their resentment towards Su Yu was unimaginable. As if he had sensed their gazes, Su Yu looked at them with a calm expression. If these two had behaved themselves, Su Yu would not have bothered to find trouble with them. If they had bad intentions, they could not blame him for being cruel and ruthless. Swish. The division master appeared and said in a loud voice, "Those who are carrying out the mission, please come forward." He took out a booklet. It was the registration book that could kill people from thousands of miles away. Many people came forward one after another to confirm whether there was anything unusual about their names. People like Su Yu, who had not yet been registered, were also forced to take out a drop of blood and engrave their names on it. Curse technique. Su Yu's blood fell into the booklet and immediately felt an obscure and dark power in his body. As long as it was stimulated by someone, it would explode and kill the person. Fortunately, the power of the curse technique was limited. Before it exploded, Su Yu could completely isolate it with the 8 great realms. After completing the registration book, the division master distributed 300 time crystals to everyone present, which was enough for them to rebel against the faction and the border. Let's go. 10 groups of people, including Su Yu alone, immediately set off for the border. Because of the time realm, there was no one along the way. There were only all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth, and ferocious beasts growing wildly. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. They arrived at a region shrouded by a blood sun. The mountains were like the sea, and the setting sun was like blood. Their eyes were filled with mountains and rivers of boiling blood. Let's first meet with the people who are stationed here. There was a secret station at the border all year round. Chapter 2494. The group came to a broken canyon and entered a cave hidden in the depths of the cliff. "Who are you?" A shout came from the cave, and a dangerous aura instantly gushed out. Everyone discovered that after identifying themselves, a layer of invisible airflow dissipated in front of them. That airflow contained extremely dangerous energy. Once touched, it was bound to produce an explosive destructive force. When they entered, what they saw was a pale-faced old man with 3 long horns and a cold expression. "So slow." The white-faced old man complained unhappily. He took out a map and arranged 10 groups of members on the spot. The sun and moon stars are responsible for this area. The 100 Horses Path is responsible for this area. After the arrangements were made, he sent a message to the faction to confirm that all the members of the mission had arrived and had not escaped. "Senior, is there any nearby?" A guard wanted to ask for relevant information, but the white-faced old man waved his hand without thinking. "Won't you know when you get there? Leave quickly." They had traveled a long way and wanted to rest here for a while. Who would have thought that the other party would be so unreasonable and drive them away, causing them to leave with different expressions? "Senior Su, this person's attitude is really unflattering," Chen Qiankuan said angrily. The 2 junior sisters were also furious. "Exactly, what's there to be arrogant about? No wonder he's still a 9-star disciple at this age." Su Yu did not say anything. He just looked at the hidden airflow near the cave and followed Chen Qiankuan and the other two to the agreed stop point. They were responsible for the southeast corner of the mine. Standing there was a natural giant pit behind them. It was so wide that it was even bigger than the entire Greater One Sect. It was dark and bottomless. Looking down from above, it was like a huge black eye staring at the sky. It was very frightening. The inside of the mine was a place that even the faction was afraid of. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they would not enter it. Senior Su, look, there are traces of human activity here. Chen Qiankuan found a clue. Su Yu glanced over and nodded slightly. His eyes narrowed as he slowly looked around. At the edge of the mine, there were remnants of a domain. Moreover, the domain had dissipated for less than 10 minutes. There were unknown people nearby, and they had not gone far. Be careful, Su Yu said slowly, staring at the serene mountains in front of him. In secret, he activated his soul domain and used his transparent eyes to see through the mountains. Then, his pupils shrank as he discovered that there were 100 experts who had concealed their auras 10 mountains away. Everyone's cultivation level was the same as his, the Xian Dao leader's level. Leave quickly. Su Yu immediately sensed that something was amiss. If there were 100 Xian Dao masters, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape. However, if he were to fight them head-on, he would definitely die. What's more, Chen Qiankuan and the other two were with him. However, just as Su Yu was about to warn Chen Qiankuan and the rest of them, a few muffled sounds of thunder suddenly came from the mine under their feet. 8 bolts of purple thunderbolts, which were as thick as mountains, flew toward Su Yu and the other 3 at the same time. The power of each bolt of lightning was no weaker than a full-powered attack from Xian Dao Master. At this critical moment, Su Yu stretched out his arms and released the extremely dense Xian Path Master's power without any reservation. A mirror was formed under his feet. Bang! The thunderbolt giant dragon came crashing down with a thunderous roar and a lightning that reflected the blood sun. Su Yu's body was shaken to the point where he could not stop swaying. Let's go. Su Yu grabbed the 3 of them and left quickly. Before the other 7 thunderbolt dragons could reach him, he had already left the mine and flown far away. Swoosh! Just as he was about to leave, a purple-haired youth with 8 purple vortexes in his eyes flew out of the mine. His face was as sharp as a knife, and his whole body was emitting the scorching aura of lightning. His cultivation level was no weaker than Su Yu's. In fact, his Xian Dao Master's power was even stronger than Su Yu's. Xian Dao Master? The Greater One faction isn't stupid, as they knew to plant a deputy faction master among the agents. The purple-haired youth thought that Su Yu was a deputy faction master. However, I can't let you go back. The 8 vortexes in the purple-haired youth's eyes started rotating, and his body turned into a bolt of lightning as he shot towards Su Yu. His speed was far beyond his cultivation level. The group of Xian Dao masters, who were hiding outside the 10 mountains, all stood up. Guardian Lei is good at everything, but he is too stubborn. A golden-haired Xian Dao master said with dissatisfaction. Since we knew that the Greater One faction's people would come, wouldn't it be foolproof if we attacked together? Now, as expected, there is a mishap. They had already known that a group of Greater One faction's spies would come to investigate the situation. However, Su Yu was very lucky. Guardian Lei was overconfident and thought that he could destroy the spies in one fell swoop. Therefore, he sent away the 100 Xian Dao masters and attacked alone. Who would have thought that something unexpected would happen? There was a vice hall master of Xian Dao sect hidden among them. If this person escapes, the Greater One faction master will most likely know that we are here. At that time, the Greater One faction will inevitably send a large army to fight. The 100 Xian Dao masters were the main force of a faction. They had all gathered here, hoping to occupy the mine in a short time. They did not want their existence to be known by the Greater One faction. It should be no problem. Guardian Lei is one of the young master's 7 stars guards. Unless the greater one faction master comes personally, no one can escape. Suyu had not flown far away when a bolt of lightning came chasing after him. Suyu was slightly surprised to find that he was alone. The 100 Xian Dao masters did not attack? Shifting his gaze, Suyu pushed Chen Qiankuan and the other 2 away. You guys run, I will deal with him. Chen Qiankuan knew that Suyu was powerful. Staying here would only be a hindrance. Senior Su, hold on. I will return to the faction to inform the faction. Chen Qiankuan fled with his 2 junior sisters. Whoosh, whoosh, 3 bolts of lightning descended from the sky, heading toward the 3 of them. But just as they were about to strike, a majestic figure appeared above them, forcefully blocking the 3 bolts of lightning. Chen Qiankuan looked at Su Yu's figure, grateful, and immediately fled. Humph! Guardian Lei let out a cold grunt. How could he allow them to escape? Just as he was about to release the power of lightning, a layer of powerful icy air appeared on the surface of Su Yu's body. He instantly flew over, freezing the space in front of him. Guardian Lei had no choice but to switch from offense to defense. Forget it, I will deal with you first, then slowly kill them. Guardian Lei coldly looked at Suyu. Deputy Faction Master of the Armament Division? Humph, you can't even withstand a blow. The 8 vortexes in his eyes rotated in unison, and another 8 lightning dragons swept toward Suyu. But this time, Suyu's expression was exceptionally calm. Looking at Chen Qiankuan, who had already disappeared into the distance, and the other 100 Xian Dao masters, who showed no signs of pursuing, he slowly said, I can finally let loose. Roar! As he spoke, the 8 dragons swept toward him. Chapter 2495. The Space Realm of the 8 Great Supreme Martial Artists? This Protector Lei was bewildered, but strangely, he was not as shocked as ordinary people would be when they saw the Space Realm. It was as if he had seen the Space Realm before. Moreover, he seemed to have some understanding of the Space Realm. Thunder Dragon Protection. The 8 thunder dragons that flew out were shattered into pieces of thunder light. In the blink of an eye, a huge cocoon-shaped thunderball was formed around him. Almost at this moment, an incomparably heavy attack struck the lightning cocoon. Suyu raised his eyebrows slightly. Protector Lei seemed to know something about the space realm. However, the next moment, Suyu realized something. His body was surrounded by the Milky Way, and he disappeared again. At the instant it disappeared, the lightning cocoon seemed to explode, and it exploded madly in all directions with a rumble. Endless thunder light, containing the power of destruction, swept in all directions. Being hit by the explosion at close range would have been seriously injured. Fortunately, Suyu was not affected by it. But he did not stop attacking. The moment the thunder light dissipated, he used the space realm to reach Protector Lei's side and pointed a finger at his head. This attack came at the moment when Protector Lei's old power had been exhausted. In theory, he should have been able to kill Suyu with one blow. However, Protector Lei did know a lot about the space realm. The moment the thunder light dissipated, he curled his lips and suddenly shouted, "Thunder Chain!" The scattered lightning bolts flowed back at an even faster speed, attempting to surround Suyu instead. In the end, it would cause an internal explosion and kill Suyu within the lightning bolt. Suyu's reaction was extremely fast. Before the thunder light completely surrounded him, he had already escaped. His figure appeared in the distance. Protector Lei shook off the thunder light on his body and sneered. "Descendant of the Space Master? Haha, nothing special." Suyu looked at Protector Lei calmly and said, "First, I have nothing to do with the Space Master. Second, you know nothing about the space realm." The Milky Way around him suddenly surged, rolling up heaven and earth. Under the space realm, the tens of thousands of mountains turned into a large mirror. Oh no! When Protector Lei realized something was wrong, it was too late. He turned into a purple thunderbolt and tried to rush out of this area. However, the space inside the mirror world seemed to be endless. No matter how fast Protector Lay rushed forward, he could not reach the end, let alone break through the mirror world. Break! Panic finally appeared in Protector Lay's eyes. He shouted, and the 8 dragons soared into the sky, trying to smash the mirror world. In the end, he really did smash it. The entire mirror world was covered in cracks like a spider web. However, Protector Lay was not happy at all. That was not the effect of the thunderbolt, but Su Yu's manipulation of the space domain. Su Yu stretched out his left and right palms and slowly closed them together. Every time it closed, there would be one more crack in the mirror world. When his 2 hands were about to completely close, the entire mirror world had already become a blur. All the mountains and seas in the world were shattered into pieces. The stone was then crushed into powder. Protector Lay began to feel intense pain all over his body. Cracks uncontrollably appeared on the surface of his body. He was about to be forcefully crushed into powder like those mountains. Su Yu's heart was filled with panic. He said angrily, "I am a 7-star guard under Xiaohao's command. If you kill me, do you know the consequences?" Xiaohao? Su Yu had never heard of him. Even if he had heard of him, he would not have held back. Destroy! He closed his palms, and the entire mirror world was completely shattered. Protector Lay, who was within it, was shattered into small pieces, and then into powder again. Not even a trace of residue was left. Only a few special items were left on his body. Su Yu waved his hand, and the 8 vortexes flew into his palm. It was by relying on the 8 vortexes that Protector Lay could easily activate the troublesome power of Thunderbolt. If his opponent had been someone else, it would have been difficult for him to deal with Protector Lay. The thunderbolts could explode and converge at any time. Anyone's attack could be easily blocked, and they would immediately inflict great damage on the enemy. With the 8 vortexes, he was in an invincible position. Since entering an 8-star civilization, this is the first time I have encountered such a troublesome peer, Su Yu murmured. If it was an ordinary peer at the same level, he could have easily killed him with the space realm. However, Protector Lay was forced to use some of the true power of the space realm before he could successfully kill him. There are so many geniuses in an 8-star civilization, Su Yu exclaimed. He looked behind him. The huge commotion here could not be hidden from the 100 Xian Dao masters. He clenched his fist, put away the 8 vortexes, and left quickly. Not long after, more than a dozen Xian Dao masters rushed over. Looking at the hundreds of millions of miles around them, the mountains and rivers had been shattered into dust, and the earth and sky no longer existed. They could not help but be frightened. Protector Lay is dead? One of the Xian Dao masters grabbed the air and caught a handful of the remains of Protector Lay. The other Xian Dao masters were all shocked. Someone dared to kill young Master Xiaohao's 7-star guard? It's over. No one can save those 4 people. As Xian Dao masters, when they mentioned young Master Xiaohao, they did not treat him as a junior, but as if they were looking up to him. It was as if young Master Xiaohao was a peerless existence. At the same time, similar scenes were playing out at all the garrisons at the same time. All the groups went to the patrolling areas and encountered ambushes, big and small. Among them, the ambushes in the 6th area were the most powerful. The groups that went were all killed before they could escape. The ambushers were Xian Dao masters who were as terrifying as Protector Lay. Only the Sun, Moon, Star, 100-horse path, and Yun Lei Dian managed to escape. The rest were all killed. At the same time, in the armament hall, the hall master placed the registration book on the stone table. However, as the hall master, he did not have the right to approach the stone table, because a big shot was standing in front of him. He was none other than the great steward, who was temporarily in charge of the faction's affairs. Staring at the names on the register, the eyes of the chief steward and the upper echelons of the sect gradually darkened as the names flickered like candles in the wind. 6 out of 10 groups have been killed. The great steward took a deep breath, his eyes turning sharp. I think I don't have to explain what this means, do I? The hall master clenched his fists, his heart thumping wildly. Bitterness spread from the corners of his mouth. This meant that they no longer had to rely on luck. A large number of enemy troops had appeared at the border. Otherwise, there would not have been so many assassins killed in such a short period of time. The great steward's grey robe shook as he said, "Mobilize the faction's forces immediately and send troops to the border." Yes. The hall master clenched his teeth. This would be another great battle. Whether they lived or died, it was up to the heavens. The decision to mobilize for war had been made. The great steward looked at the 4 surviving groups and said, "Not bad, they are all soldiers with outstanding performance. Sun, Moon, Star, 100-horse path, Yunladian, Qiankuan, and Suyu?" Chapter 2496. Suyu? What a familiar name. The great supervisor had indeed forgotten about Suyu, who he had thrown into the armaments division. The division master hurriedly said, "Suyu is a newcomer who has just entered the armaments division. It seems that you personally arranged for him." Hearing this, the great supervisor finally remembered who Suyu was. So it's him. The great supervisor was shocked. He is alone, but he is still alive. What a miracle! The hall master also said, "This child is indeed extraordinary. In the last competition, he actually obtained more than 10 divine fire badges by himself. It's simply inconceivable. That's why I decided to arrange for him to participate in this operation. I didn't expect him to have some ability." Little did they know that Suyu had not only saved his own life, he had also saved the entire Qiankuan team. "If he comes back alive, let him come and see me." The great supervisor finally decided to take Suyu seriously. Yes. At the faraway border, near the mine, a dazzling golden palanquin covered the sky with a blinding golden light slowly flew over. 100 Xian Daomasters flew out and knelt respectfully in front of the golden sedan. In addition, there were 6 youths from different races who also knelt on the ground. Everyone's expression became extremely solemn at this moment. "Protector Lei is dead?" A calm voice came from the golden sedan. But none of the 106 Xian Daomasters dared to answer. None of them dared to even breathe loudly. It is good that he died." The person in the golden sedan said calmly, "The 7 stars were trained by me, but he was defeated by a deputy division master. It is better that such a useless piece of trash is dead." Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. But even a dog has to look at its master, let alone kill him. The person in the golden sedan said slowly, "Find him, then inform me." The 106 Xian Daomasters were filled with anticipation. Was he finally going to make a move? If they remembered correctly, he had not made a move in 100 years, because he no longer had any peers who could match him. On the other side, the group members who were lucky enough to escape all ran towards the station. They did not know that they were merely lab rats in the faction's eyes. They were using their lives to speculate about the situation at the border. They all headed toward the outpost, ready to inform the faction of the change. Suyu held the 8 vortexes in his hands, and after muttering to himself for a moment, he came to a suitable place and stopped. Since Chen Qiankuan and the other 2 had rushed to the station first, he didn't need to worry about notifying the sect. He opened his palm and looked at the 8 vortexes. After careful inspection, he confirmed that they were not condensed from some kind of divine technique, but Dao artifacts. Yes, it was a complete set of 8 Dao artifacts. Interesting. After Suyu studied it for a moment, he turned pale with fright. Ordinary Dao artifacts could only be activated by the forger himself. This was because the Dao artifact contained the Dao Master's imprint of the Great Dao, and outsiders could not use it. However, the set of Dao artifacts in front of him had cleverly formed a formation to suppress the Dao seal of the original owner. In this way, whoever obtained the complete set of Tao artifacts would be able to use them at will. In the outer regions, this is unimaginable. Su Yu sighed softly, feeling more and more that the 8-star civilization was broad and profound. Even the flaw of a Tao artifact that could only be used by the Tao master had been resolved. Although this was an ability unique to a specific set of Tao artifacts, it was still very shocking. This thing can be used. All of Su Yu's treasures and divine weapons had been melted into liquid by the flames of the Way when he broke through the 8 great domains. Now, he did not have any weapon that he could use. The complete set of Tao artifacts in front of him could be used. Otherwise, it would be too eye-catching to use the 8 great domains. With that in mind, Su Yu immediately began to refine the 8 great vortexes. A few days later, he slowly opened his eyes, and in his left eye, 8 purple vortexes were faintly discernible. "Thunder, come!" he shouted softly, and the 8 vortexes suddenly rotated. Then 8 giant dragons as thick as mountains appeared between heaven and earth, sweeping in all directions with the power to destroy heaven and earth. Thousands of mountains in front of him were destroyed in the blink of an eye. Moreover, under his control, the broken thunder could listen to his commands, exploding immediately and retracting immediately. With this thing, even without using the 8 great domains, Su Yu could be invincible among his peers. Satisfied with its performance, Su Yu blinked his eyes, and the 8 vortexes immediately concealed themselves, not revealing the slightest trace. "Let's go back to the outpost and take a look." The faction should have responded. Su Yu tiptoed and arrived at the outpost. The outpost was still protected by a layer of air current. Su Yu's gaze once again rested on the air current. The last time he had come, he had felt that the air current was vaguely familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before, but he could not recall where. Seeing it again, Su Yu's gaze flickered, and a ray of light appeared in his mind. "Who are you?" "It's me," Su Yu replied. The air current immediately dispersed, allowing Su Yu to enter. What surprised Su Yu was that he had just entered the outpost, and he discovered that other than Chen Qianquan and the other 2, there were 8 other people. They were the familiar by Lianxin and Tianling paths, as well as the Sun, Moon, and Yun Lai Dian group. "What are you all doing?" Su Yu was puzzled. Seeing that Su Yu had returned, Chen Qianquan heaved a sigh of relief. "Senior Su, I knew you would definitely return. This is great." Having not seen Su Yu return for a few days, Chen Qianquan was truly worried. "I was delayed by some trivial matters," Su Yu said. "Why did so many groups of people come back?" Chen Qianquan's expression immediately changed. "We were not the ones who were attacked. The other 3 groups were also ambushed. Luckily, they all escaped like us." Hearing this, Su Yu's eyes slowly narrowed. "Did you manage to contact the other 6 groups?" Su Yu asked thoughtfully. Chen Qianquan shook his head. There was a strong disturbance near the mine, and communication treasures could not be used. Hence, I do not know their situation. I hope they are fine. Su Yu did not speak. He was afraid that none of those people were still alive. If he remembered correctly, Protector Lei was one of the 7 stars protectors of Qingqi. In other words, there were 6 other protectors. Presumably, the 6th group that did not return had encountered an unusually powerful 7 stars protector, and hence could not return. As for Bai Lianxin and the others, they had probably encountered an ordinary ambush, which was why they were lucky enough to escape. Senior Su, we have already sent a message to the faction. Although they have not replied to us, they must have taken action, a junior sister said. Before the faction's army arrives, let's wait patiently in the outpost. Anyway, we have enough time crystals. Chen Qianquan nodded. Yes, there is no need to take the risk of returning to the faction. Who knows if we will meet them again on the way? Su Yu nodded and was about to agree. A cold, arrogant, and sarcastic voice was heard. Since you are so powerful and have saved the entire Qianquan group, why are you still hiding in the outpost? Chapter 2497. When Chen Qianquan and the others arrived, they said that Su Yu had saved them from the hands of the powerful Xian Dao master. This included Bai Lianxin and Tian Ling Dao. Even the most ordinary Xian Dao master's strength far surpassed Huang Dao masters. Only Vice Hall masters could contend against him. It was impossible for a mere six-star disciple like Su Yu to cover their escape. Seeing that Su Yu had returned, Bai Lianxin could no longer hold back her anger and spoke coldly. Su Yu looked at her and said, "You're really annoying." Since he looked down on Su Yu in every way, he might as well just ignore him. Why did he have to target them at every turn? Bai Lianxin coldly snorted, "Not as annoying as a lowly human like you." This was the second time Su Yu had heard such words. Even bodhisattvas had fire, let alone Su Yu. He looked at Bai Lianxin indifferently. "Are you very noble?" "At least more noble than you." Bai Lianxin sneered coldly. Su Yu said, "Nobility doesn't depend on one's family background, but on one's own abilities. Do you think that you have the abilities to match up to your nobility?" The one who spoke was Tian Ling Dao with a fake smile. Bai Lianxin is one of the top 10 prodigies of the 100-Flower clan. She's much more powerful than you. How dare you ask such a question? Su Yu didn't even bother to look at Tian Ling Dao. These two people were just jackals of the same tribe. "Do you want to give it a try?" Su Yu calmly looked at Bai Lianxin. Bai Lianxin sneered in her heart. This was exactly what she wanted. Why did she have to provoke him again and again? Wasn't she just looking for reasons and excuses to attack him? Otherwise, she couldn't be bothered to waste her breath. "How do you want to try?" Bai Lianxin stared at Su Yu, her eyes filled with murderous intent. Su Yu calmly said, "I won't move and you will attack me. If you are still alive after one move, then it will be my loss." Wait a minute? Apart from Chen Qianquan and the others, who understood Su Yu's true abilities, everyone else was shocked. Did I hear wrongly? Su Yu allowed them to attack him, but did not retaliate. In the end, if Su Yu could survive Bai Lianxin's attack, did that mean Su Yu had lost? Bai Lianxin was stunned. She had never expected Su Yu to propose such a strange competition. But why did she refuse? "You said it yourself. Don't blame me if you die." Killing intent seethed on Bai Lianxin's pretty face, and it caused her face to have a savage expression. Su Yu stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, waiting for Bai Lianxin to make her move. As you wish." How could Bai Lianxin miss such a great opportunity? She took out a colorful flower and imbued it with her Path Master's power. Then, she attacked Su Yu in an instant. If they didn't retaliate, none of the Yellow Dowlords would be able to survive. However, Su Yu was not Yellow Path Master, but Xian Path Master. Furthermore, it was an existence that was slightly stronger than an ordinary Ecliptic Path Lord. Bang! With an abnormal muffled sound, colorful lights burst out from the flower and filled the sky. It should have drowned Su Yu. However, on the surface of Su Yu's body, there was an icy current that could not be detected by the naked eye. Not only did it reflect all of the colorful lights, but it also imbued the colorful lights with extreme coldness. The result was as one could imagine. A large area of cold air and colorful light enveloped Bai Lian's heart. Bai Lianxin was shocked. At the critical moment, she hurriedly used her flower to summon a large 5-colored light shield in front of her. Those colorful lights were released by her, so they should have been able to be blocked. However, the result was that her Dao artifact was instantly frozen and shattered by the shocking cold air of the colorful light. At the same time, pieces of colorful light mercilessly pierced through Bai Lianxin's body. Her body rapidly froze into ice at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her vitality dissipated like smoke. In a breath's time, she was completely dead. The crowd, who had been watching the show, was stunned. Then, they were shocked and horrified. In the station, there was a deathly silence. Bai Lianxin attacked the motionless Su Yu with all her strength, but the result was that Su Yu was unharmed, while she died. It seems like I won, Suyu said slowly. He then looked at Tian Ling Dao. As cold and arrogant as he was, when Suyu looked at him, his whole body trembled violently. He said, What did you do to Bai Lianxin? I am not afraid of you. You have challenged my patience again and again. Congratulations, you have succeeded. You have exhausted all of my patience. Suyu glared at him, and the power of mysterious path surged out. Tian Ling Dao did not even have time to resist before his soul was obliterated. Not only did the two of them hate Suyu verbally, but they also hated him from the bottom of their hearts. Finally, Suyu looked at the sun, moon, and stars. Ri Zhongtian, Yu Hun, and Xing Fei's eyes were filled with fear, and they pleaded, Senior Brother Su, we are willing to repay our previous offense 100 times over. Please forgive us. On the snowy peak, Suyu had fought with them for the heaven puppet. Suyu shook his head and said, If I want to kill someone, who can stop me? As he spoke, his eyes swept across the area, and another wave of power of mysterious path swept out. Ri Zhongtian and the other two screamed miserably. However, the pain they had imagined did not come. Instead, a muffled groan came from behind them. Ri Zhongtian opened his eyes carefully, and when he was sure that he and his two companions were still alive, he looked confused. How could he be fine? When he looked at Suyu again, his eyes were not looking at them at all, but at the person behind them. Ri Zhongtian stepped aside, revealing the person in charge of the station who had been sitting silently behind them, the white-faced old man. The white-faced old man was bleeding from the corners of his mouth, and his whole body was covered with ghastly wounds. In his hand was a protective jade pendant that had been shattered into pieces. The power of mysterious path that Suyu had used just now was aimed at this white-faced old man. Because of the protective jade pendant, he was lucky enough to survive, but he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Chen Qiankuan was shocked. Senior Brother Su, why did you attack a senior in charge of the station? If this gets back to the faction, you will be punished with the death penalty. The Greater One faction had always severely punished members of the faction for killing each other. Especially someone with a special status like the person in charge of the station. How could he simply kill him? Moreover, he was extremely puzzled. Why would Suyu kill the person in charge of the station for no reason? Based on Suyu's character and temperament, he could not possibly kill someone in a frenzy. Suyu ignored him, walked up to the white-faced old man, and said coldly, 1,000-mile dike can be destroyed by an ant's nest. You have caused the deaths of so many gatekeepers. Even if you die 100 times, it would not be enough. The white-faced old man said with difficulty, What did I do wrong? Why did you kill the innocent? Kill the innocent? Suyu laughed silently. Let me ask you two things. First, how did the enemy know the exact patrolling location of our 10 teams, and how did they set up an ambush there without a single mistake? Second, who gave you the 1,000-year willow silk at your door? If I remember correctly, this item was produced by the Divine Clan. The Greater One faction does not have it. At first, Suyu had thought that he was the only one who had been ambushed. But when he arrived at the station, he realized that everyone had been ambushed, and the person who knew the most about each team was the white-faced old man. Of course, he could also say that it was a member of the team carrying out a mission who had tipped them off. But Suyu had looked at the airflow at the door twice, and finally remembered where he had seen it before. Chapter 2498. In the library of the Greater One faction, the book had briefly introduced a peculiar item called the 1,000-year willow silk. This item was unique to the 3 great divine clans among the 344 factions. It could be implanted into the body of the Path Master and nurtured within it. It had 2 uses. One was to be like the roots of a tree, automatically absorbing the way energy of heaven and earth to increase the speed of cultivation. The other was to leave the body and act as a defense, as seen at the door. However, the 1,000-year willow silk was extremely rare, and could not be found on the market. In addition, the three great divine clans were quite far from the Greater One faction. Throughout history, there had never been 1,000-year willow silk near the Greater One faction. Thus, no one had ever seen it. As a result, when they had first arrived, apart from Suyu, no one had recognized what it was. Thus, Suyu concluded that the white-faced old man had some kind of connection with the faction that the Seven Stars Guard belonged to. Upon hearing Suyu's words, everyone realized that they had been betrayed and ambushed. They had thought it was a coincidence, but now it seemed like a deliberate massacre. And the white-faced old man in front of them was the culprit. You are slandering me without any evidence. How can you suspect that I did it? The white-faced old man was panicking, but he pretended to be calm on the surface. Suyu said calmly, "Of course I have no evidence. But if I hand you over to the faction, I believe they will find a way to find evidence from you." The Greater One faction had been established for many years. If it could not even deal with a stubborn traitor, it would have ceased to exist long ago. Since he is already an enemy, I think the enemy already knows that you have escaped here. Suyu picked up the white-faced old man. Return to the faction immediately. The members of the third group were startled. He was afraid that this old thing had already secretly sent a message to the invaders, telling them that they were hiding here. Realizing this, the members of the third group felt their scalps go numb. They immediately packed up and prepared to leave. Suyu came to the exit of the cave. Sure enough, the white-faced old man was seriously injured. The 1,000-year willow silk had all withered, no longer possessing its original power. With a wave of his sleeves, the 1,000-year willow silk was burned into ashes. The group left the cave and rushed back to the faction, not daring to linger in the canyon for even a moment. Several hours later, under the lead of a young man holding a white fan, the 10 or so Xian Dao masters arrived at the secret cave with ease. Looking at the withered 1,000-year-old willow, the young man with the white fan narrowed his eyes. It seems that we are a step too late. Sure enough, when he went in to take a look, other than the two corpses, there was no one else. It seems that among this group of idiots, there is someone who is slightly smarter. The white fan youth's gaze was gloomy. However, where can you escape to? No one that young Master Xiaohao wants to kill has survived. He couldn't help but sympathize with the person who killed Guardian Lei. Speaking of Suyu using the Greater One sect's unique flying treasures, the group left the canyon and sped towards the direction of the sect. If there were no accidents, he should be able to return to the sect within half a year. However, not long after they left the canyon, Suyu, who was standing on the flying magical weapon and deep in thought, suddenly stopped infusing the Path Master's energy, causing the flying magical weapon to come to a slow stop. "Senior Brother Su, why did you stop?" Chen Qiankuan asked in surprise. Since there were powerful pursuers behind them, why did they stop? Suyu looked at the endless horizon in front of him and said, "We must change our route." He took out the nearby map that Yu Xiangwan had given him before he left and studied it carefully. "Can we return to the faction earlier if we go straight?" Chen Qiankuan's face was full of confusion. The big and small forces near the border of the Greater One sect were intertwined. If they took a detour, it would be more dangerous. Suyu nodded as he studied the map. Yes, it is indeed shorter to go straight, but it is also easier to fall into the enemy's trap. He pointed at a location on the map and said, "This is the 1,000 Ming Mountain. We will pass by this place in a day." The 1,000 Ming Mountain spanned trillions of miles, almost spanning half of the Greater One sect's territory. The unique Weeping God ghost tree that grew in this mountain was densely packed and covered the entire mountain range. "Yes, we passed by this place on our way here. Is there a problem?" Chen Qiankuan asked. Su Yu's expression became solemn. The 1,000 Ming Mountain's greatest characteristic is that the Weeping God ghost tree inside will emit a powerful buzzing sound whenever an external object passes through. That was how the 1,000 Ming Mountain got its name. Anything that passed through, even the slightest movement, would trigger a reaction from the weeping god ghost tree inside, causing it to emit a ghostly howl. If they were the enemy, they would have to set up an inescapable net in the Thousand Ming Mountain in order to capture them. As long as they passed through the Thousand Ming Mountain, they would definitely be exposed. Hence, to be safe, it was best not to pass through the Thousand Ming Mountain. It would take a very long time to go around the mountain. I am worried that there is an enemy ambush inside, Su Yu said seriously. Chen Qianquan was surprised, thinking that the enemy would not go to such great lengths just for them, right? But Chen Qianquan understood Su Yu's strength, so he did not refute him. Junior Su, your guess is too baseless. Yun Leidian and the other two members were anxious, vaguely complaining that Su Yu had stopped his flying treasure. The other two members also said, Junior Su, it is good to be cautious, but going too far is as bad as not doing enough. Looking at Ri Yueshing and Chen Qianquan's groups, it seemed that they all felt that Su Yu was making a mountain out of a molehill. They did not approve of Su Yu's actions. Su Yu shook his head. He had been through a lot, but he only knew one truth. It was better to be safe than sorry. If the enemy was so powerful, he would be courting death if he acted rashly. Perhaps, Su Yu said calmly, I have decided to change my route and go around the Thousand Ming Mountain. It will take me twice as long. Those who are willing to follow me can come with me. On the flying treasure, everyone was silent. Su Yu sighed, then cupped his fists and said, If that is the case, take care. We will meet at the faction. Just as he was about to leave, Chen Qianquan suddenly said, Senior Su, we will go with you. The three of them were people who had received Su Yu's kindness, so they knew how powerful he was. Hence, they trusted him. Ri Yushing, Yun Leidian, and the other two looked elsewhere. Yun Leidian's team leader, Yun Feixian, said, We have many people, so it is inconvenient for us to fly. Hence, we will be in charge of the flying treasure. How could they lack flying treasures for such a long journey? Chen Qianquan was about to argue, but Su Yu waved his hand. Let them have it. We have other ways. Firstly, Su Yu did not need flying treasures to travel at all. Secondly, the Supreme One faction's flying treasures were too bright. Using it would be like saying that he was a member of the Supreme One faction. Su Yu and the other three left the flying treasure immediately. Chapter 2499. Ri Zhongtian glanced in Su Yu's direction, a little hesitant. In fact, he had wanted to follow Su Yu, but he could not bring himself to do so. Hearing Yun Feixian's words, his expression turned serious. It's better to be safe than sorry. Although junior brother Su's guess is ridiculous, it's better for us to be on our guard. In theory, the few of them should not be important in the eyes of the enemy. It was not worth spending so much effort to capture them. But what if? Senior brother Ri, why are you so suspicious? Yun Feixian covered her mouth and laughed. We should be cautious, but it's not good to be overly cautious. Ri Zhongtian shook his head and said thoughtfully, But I have a feeling of unease. Even someone as powerful as Su Yu had to be extremely cautious. Would it really be all right for them to be so reckless? Sigh. All right, when we cross the Thousand Ming Mountain, we will try our best not to cause any commotion, Yun Feixian said. A day passed quickly. They arrived at the Thousand Ming Mountain on time. As far as the eye could see, a pitch-black mountain range stretched across the vast land. Giant, pitch-black trees grew all over the mountain range. That was the famous Weeping God Ghost Tree. With the naked eye, a gentle breeze blew past the divine tree's leaves, and the entire tree suddenly let out a ghostly wail. Its shriek caused the nearby Weeping God Ghost Trees to howl. All the Weeping God Ghost Trees within his line of sight were alarmed. Such a huge commotion would be difficult not to be discovered. Yun Feixian's expression calmed down. Under her control, the rumbling sounds of the flying treasure disappeared, and she prepared to fly it high up in the sky. This way, the possibility of alerting the Weeping God Ghost Trees would be reduced. Wait. Ri Zhongtian hurriedly stopped her. If there is really an ambush in the mountain range, wouldn't it be easier for you to be discovered if you flew high up in the sky? Yun Feixian was startled, and she hurriedly lowered the flying treasure's altitude, flying close to the top of the Thousand Ming Mountain. However, no matter how much the sound of the flying treasure was suppressed, it would still cause a gust of air as it flew. The gust of air formed a gust of wind, blowing at the Weeping God ghost trees. Suddenly, the area was filled with Weeping God ghost trees, and the sound was extremely piercing. Yun Feixian's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously increased the speed of his flying Dharma treasure, hoping to rush over quickly. Ri Zhongtian immediately transmitted, "Don't." Unfortunately, it was too late. The sudden acceleration of the flying magic treasure brought about an even more powerful movement. The Weeping God ghost trees' cries turned from noisy to ear-piercing, piercing through the 9 heavens. All of the Weeping God ghost trees within a radius of billions of kilometers were affected. Quick, escape immediately! Since they had already caused such a huge commotion, there was no need to hide anymore. Yun Feixian immediately activated his flying Dharma treasure and turned into a beam of light as he flew over. In the blink of an eye, he flew away. When Yun Feixian turned around and saw that there were no pursuers, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief. I already said that junior brother Su is just scaring himself. Let's see, what kind of ambush could there be? Yun Feixian teased Ri Zhongtian. At this moment, Ri Zhongtian's tense heart slowly relaxed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Maybe I overestimated Su Yu. Because Su Yu was so powerful, he trusted his intelligence." Yun Feixian could not stop laughing. "That's why I said that going too far is as bad as not going far enough. To put it nicely, junior brother Su is just being cautious, but to put it bluntly, he is just a coward." She faced the crowd and was speaking when she suddenly realized that there was something wrong with everyone's eyes. They were filled with fear. "What's wrong with all of you?" Yun Feixian asked in surprise. All of a sudden, Yun Feixian felt a chill on her neck, as if a cold breeze was blowing toward her. At the same time, she heard a sinister voice. "I feel that the cowardly junior brother Su Yu said is the smart one." Yun Feixian's body shuddered, and she slowly turned her head. Her beautiful eyes gradually widened, and she saw a humongous Xian Dao master-level bird. There were 13 tall figures standing upright on it. Each of them was at the Xian Dao master level. The leader was a 100-meter-tall giant wearing a skull necklace. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked down at Yun Feixian. Yun Feixian swallowed hard. You are, Humph." The skeleton giant snorted, and its giant palm pressed down like a mountain, instantly grabbing Yun Feixian. Then, as she shrieked in fear, she was thrown into the giant's mouth. Her pathetic cries reverberated in the giant's mouth for a while, then there were no more sounds. Seeing this, the remaining 5 people on the flying treasure turned pale with fear. Ri Zhongtian really wanted to slap himself in the face. He had obviously trusted Su Yu's judgment, so why had he not chosen to leave with him, but instead followed the arrogant Yun Feixian? In the end, everything was just as Su Yu had predicted. There was an ambush in the 10,000 Crying Mountain. It was an ambush that caused them to despair. After the giant finished eating Yun Feixian, it licked its lips. Its giant eyes looked toward Ri Zhongtian and the others, and it laughed cruelly. "The taste is not bad. I wonder how the one who killed Protector Lei tastes like." "Protector Lei? Who?" They had no idea. "What is the cultivation level of that Su person?" The giant scanned them, seeing through their cultivation levels. The strongest was only Ri Zhongtian, who was about to break through to the Xian Dao master level. Such a person could not have killed Protector Lei. The only possibility was that so-called junior brother Su. Ri Zhongtian swallowed hard, saying, "I don't know, but he could kill me with a glance." Bai Lianxin and Tian Ling Dao were existences similar to him. But they had all died with a glance from Su Yu. He could kill you with a glance. That must be Xian Dao Master. The giant grunted. Where is he? How could the people on the flying treasure dare to hide anything? They told the giant everything in detail. After listening, the giant laughed coldly. What a cunning thing, to be able to guess that we were lying in ambush at the 10,000 Crying Mountain. I have to say, even I admire his divine foresight. Even as an enemy, he could not help but admire Su Yu's scheming. If it were most people, they would not believe that they had set up such a shocking plan and set up an ambush on the entire Wanming Mountain. No matter which part of the 10,000 Crying Mountain they chose, as long as they caused a commotion, they would immediately be discovered by the people lying in ambush. But Su Yu was able to predict and change his route so decisively. Just this wisdom alone was enough to make one sigh in admiration. This is interesting. The giant crushed a piece of jade and told the other people lying in ambush what had happened. After that, he looked at Ri Zhongtian and said, "You are still a promising candidate. Follow me back to the cliff of the world and be my slave." Hearing this, Ri Zhongtian was shocked. The cliff of the world, you are from the three great divine clans? Chapter 2500. As for the remaining 4 people on the magic treasure, he sneered, opened his mouth, and swallowed them all. At the same time, a ferocious beast was running wildly on the ground. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was a storage space on the dire beast's belly. Within the space were Su Yu, Chen Qiankuan, and the other 2. "Senior brother Su, isn't this speed too slow?" Chen Qiankuan held a map in his hand. There was a dot of light on the map that was almost motionless. That was where they were now. Compared to the long journey back to the sect, the distance the light dot had traveled was almost negligible. Su Yu was calm and composed. "Anyway, we have enough time crystals. What's wrong with returning to the faction a little later?" "That's true." Chen Qiankuan put away the map and stopped thinking about it. He asked curiously, "Senior brother Su, can I ask what your current cultivation level is? If it's not convenient to disclose it, then forget it." Not only him, but the other 2 members of the team, Linger and Pearl, also came over. Their eyes sparkled. They were really curious about Su Yu's abilities. However, Su Yu shook his head lightly. It was a slip of the tongue. "Brother Su, please don't take it to heart." Chen Qiankuan misunderstood that Su Yu didn't want to inform them, so his face was filled with embarrassment. Su Yu said calmly, "It's not that I don't want to tell you, but I don't know either." He had only been in the Greater One sect for a short period of time and did not have any friends, so he had never discussed the issue of the Daolord realm with anyone. Chen Qiankuan was stunned for a while before he realized that Su Yu was just a goalie who had just been promoted from a slave to a disciple. It wasn't strange that he didn't know the hierarchy of Xian Dao masters. "That's easy." Chen Qiankuan took out a ring that was engraved with many images of living beings. "Senior brother Su, you just need to imbue a bit of Xian Dao master's power into this." Su Yu nodded and did as he was told. The ring immediately emitted a faint purple light. Light purple. Chen Qiankuan, Linger and Zhuo looked at him with admiration and respect. Chen Qiankuan suddenly understood. No wonder senior brother Su is so powerful, and even the heavenly puppet is afraid of you. Senior brother Su is already a late-stage light nirvana stage Xian Dao master. Chen Qiankuan had been in the Greater One faction for many years, and he indeed knew more than Su Yu. How are Xian Dao masters' realms divided? Ever since Su Yu came to the Greater One sect, he had come into contact with Master Xian, and he could clearly sense the gap between their cultivation levels. They were both Xian Dao masters. Some of them were Xian Dao masters, 9-star disciples, vice hall masters, and grand managers. However, there was a huge gap between their strength. Chen Qiankuan said, "Xian Dao's cultivation is divided into light nirvana, middle nirvana, peak nirvana, void nirvana, and nirvana void. These 5 realms are then divided into early, middle, and late stages. Brother Su is now at the late stage of light nirvana." Hearing this, Su Yu suddenly understood. The division of the profound path, was roughly the same as the division of the ecliptic path. The latter was also divided into the initial Tao realm, forgetting words realm, fish dragon realm, heaven tier, and great exalted realm. Each realm was further divided into 3 levels. After being in an 8-star civilization for so long, he finally had some understanding of his own cultivation. Zhu Er enviously said, "Senior apprentice brother Su was able to reach the late stage of light nirvana at such a young age. It's really incredible. He's not any weaker than the local geniuses in the dream break realm." Ling Er also said, "That's right. With senior brother Su's current strength, he can rank in the top 10 among those of the same generation." Su Yu was slightly surprised. Our Greater One faction still has such a powerful heaven ruler? In the days that he had been in Greater One sect, he had never heard of such a powerful peer in the sect. Chen Qiankuan said, "Of course there is. However, they are different from us ordinary guards. We are trained by the faction to manage the faction well, but they are trained as martial inheritors by the faction. They have priority access to all the high-quality resources in the faction, and we try our best to train them to become top-notch experts." Zhu Er and Ling Er's eyes dimmed, and they sighed. Yes, they stay outside the main gate for a long time, and are trained by the second master himself. They are in a different world from us. Su Yu gently rubbed his chin. It turned out that there was such a special group of people in the faction. However, they should not have any interaction with him. Once he became a hall master, he would be qualified to use that item and find out the location of the Sinful Lady Palace. Then, he would leave the Greater One sect. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, Su Yu humbly asked them for relevant knowledge. Time passed slowly. The ferocious beasts ran tirelessly for a whole year, and finally arrived at the southern end of the Wanming mountain range. As long as they went around the southern end, they could successfully bypass the Wanming mountain range. The day after that, they would be able to return to the faction without any obstacles. However, the southern end had already extended to the neighboring faction, the Zhengtian faction. 2 years ago, the Zhengtian faction and the Greater One sect had a dispute, and they fought for the mine together. This time, they had borrowed the territory of the Zhengtian faction. If they were discovered, there would inevitably be another fierce battle. "Senior brother Su, we are almost there. Do you want to come out now?" Chen Qiankuan asked. Su Yu shook his head. "Let the ferocious beasts run, we are too big a target." As if responding to his words, as soon as he said it, the whole cavern world shook violently. Looking out, Su Yu's mouth could not help but twitch slightly. The ferocious beasts had accidentally broken into the formation trap at the border of the 2 factions. The ferocious beasts were smashed to pieces, and even the space storage device was attacked by the formation. "We have no choice but to come out," Su Yu said helplessly. The 4 of them left the storage device. As soon as Su Yu appeared, he stepped on the ground and destroyed the formation that was about to attack. What came into view was a boundless plain. It was also where the Zhengtian faction was located. The place where he was standing now was the territory of the Zhengtian faction. Chen Qiankuan sent a message to ask if it was safe. Su Yu said, "You can stay in the storage device for the time being. We will talk about it when I am safe." In a foreign land, the more people there were, the bigger the target. He looked back at the end of the Wanming mountain and murmured, "Finally, I can officially return to the faction." If he walked forward for a while, he would be completely out of the range of the Wanming mountain. Who would have thought that at this moment, a powerful domain would suddenly descend upon them? Sword shadows flew out from the domain, piercing Su Yu's heart with thousands of swords. Without thinking, Su Yu raised his hand and slapped it with his palm. The vigorous power of the mysterious path smashed the domain away on the spot. A surprised voice suddenly came, "Late-stage light nirvana? You are an inner sanctum disciple of the Greater One faction, aren't you?" It was just as Chen Qiankuan had described. The Greater One faction divided its disciples into 2 categories. One was the one who managed the faction and did not expect them to be strong in martial arts. The other was the one who specialized in cultivation and regarded them as the martial arts heritage. The former could be called outer sanctum disciples, and the latter could be called inner sanctum disciples. Su Yu was so young, but he had extraordinary cultivation. Naturally, he was regarded as an inner sanctum disciple. "Why do you care?" Su Yu snorted coldly and hit somewhere on the plain. Boom! With a loud explosion, a huge gap immediately appeared on the plain. A stone statue was half buried in it. The stone statue opened its mouth and laughed. "Little kid, you have quite a temper." Chapter 25:01. Since you are a disciple of the Greater One sect and an inner sect disciple, and you have trespassed into the territory of the Righteous Sky sect, no matter what you say, this old man cannot let you go. The stone statue slowly climbed out. His seemingly smiling face was filled with murderous intent. Su Yu's gaze was calm as he said, "Since you know my cultivation level, why do you have to make things difficult for me? I'm just passing through your sect's territory. I have no ill intentions." Hearing this, the stone statue smiled. "Do you think your cultivation is that amazing?" As he spoke, he released his cultivation base. That was obviously a level higher than Su Yu's. The density of his Xian-Tao energy was more than twice that of Su Yu's. Early stage of middle nirvana. Su Yu recognized it immediately and was slightly surprised. Middle nirvana early stage, in the Greater One sect, one could definitely take up the position of Hall Master. However, this person was actually sent to guard the borders. "Hee, it's your bad luck to have met me," the stone statue slowly said. All of its profound energy was suddenly poured into the ground. Bang! At the same time, Su Yu suddenly felt that the ground he was standing on had left the boundary of the earth and become a part of the stone statue. Suddenly, a huge crack appeared beneath his feet. The sharp teeth formed by the stones intersected with each other, gnawing on the things that fell in. Su Yu immediately soared into the sky. However, as soon as he moved, he discovered that his body was more than 10,000 times heavier than usual. This was the stone statue's innate skill, earth manipulation. Even the gravity of the earth had changed. Su Yu fell down uncontrollably and was about to fall into the ferocious giant mouth. His eyes finally turned cold. "Old thing, I've already given you a way out." Su Yu could use this as an excuse to kill his opponent's sneak attack. However, he had entered the Righteous Sky sect first and was in the wrong, so he did not want to make a big fuss. Who would have thought that the stone statue didn't know what was good for it? "Haha, how many years has it been since we last met? Has the inner court disciple of Greater One sect become so arrogant?" the stone statue said in a hoarse voice. Humph! 8 purple vortexes suddenly appeared in Su Yu's left eye. At the same time, the vortex spun violently and shot out 8 bolts of destructive lightning. Roar! 8 lightning dragons descended from the sky and bombarded the stone statue without any warning. The 8 extreme lightning controlling set? The stone statue's expression changed abruptly as it recognized the origin of the 8 thunderbolts. He hurriedly condensed a defensive barrier formed by the earth around him to resist the 8 lightning dragons that were about to land on him. Even so, the stone statue's body was still attacked by the strands of lightning, causing his entire body to go numb. However, the stone statue's face was filled with astonishment. It trembled and said, You are one of the 7-star protectors of that person from the Triple Deities sect?" Su Yu was slightly startled. That person? Who? However, he had clearly misunderstood his identity. Su Yu was too lazy to explain, so he said, "If you know, then get lost." The stone statue didn't even resist. It immediately withdrew its innate talent, turned around, and ran without making a sound. Seeing that he had left so readily, Su Yu could not help but be suspicious. Is this identity really so intimidating? If a guard was already like this, then who knew what the identity of the 7-star guard was? With the stone statue escaping, Suyu had no time to pursue it. He took the opportunity to go around the Thousand Ming Mountain and headed straight for the Greater One faction. However, the stone statue's manipulation of the nearby land still indirectly affected Wanming Mountain. Endless ghostly wails, like lightning, spread from the southern end to the rest of the area. The stone statue ran all the way to the Jingtian faction. His face was filled with horror, and he kept muttering, "How did I meet Protector Lei? Since Protector Lei is here, does that mean that person is here too?" As he was thinking, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure. The figure was standing quietly under a big tree. His left hand was behind his back, and his right hand was holding a leaf, playing with it leisurely. This person had long blonde hair, an extremely handsome face, and there was a faint smile on his face. What shocked the stone statue the most was that the hourglass on top of this person's head was motionless. The lives of all martial artists in the dream-interrupted realm were controlled by the realm of time. The time crystal in the hourglass was constantly dripping down. However, this blond young man did not even have a drop of time crystal. The stone statue wanted to ask who this person was, but this person gave him an extremely dangerous feeling, so he simply pretended not to see him and left immediately. Unexpectedly, when he ignored the other person called out to him, "Did you cause the commotion at the Thousand Sounds Mountain just now?" The stone statue's heart skipped a beat, and he stopped in his tracks, looking at the other person with slight fear. "You are." The blond young man had a handsome and elegant smile, and he slowly walked over. "Can you answer me first?" His voice was very gentle, but it had an irresistible charm to it. The stone statue could not help but answer, "Yes, I fought with someone." "What's his name?" The blond young man had already walked closer, and his appearance gave off an unusually warm feeling. However, the stone statue felt extremely pressured, and he hurriedly said, "One of the 7-star protectors of the Triple Deities sect, Protector Lei." The blond young man's smile suddenly widened, and his eyes became even more gentle. "Why are you so sure?" "Because he has the 8 Extremes Lightning Controlling Set." The stone statue took a deep breath. Talking to this mysterious blond young man made him feel more and more pressured, and he almost could not breathe. This feeling was like facing the few big shots of the sect, and it made him suffocate. "Oh, the 8 Extremes Lightning Controlling Set." The blond young man smiled and nodded. "Where is he?" The stone statue hurriedly said, "He escaped in the direction of the Greater One sect." "Well, thank you." The blond young man smiled, and put the leaf in his hand into the stone statue's hand, and said softly, "This is my name." The stone statue looked down, and his face suddenly changed dramatically. Because of the shock, his facial features were distorted. In the distortion, one could see the fear that came from the soul. He held the leaf with both hands and looked at the 2 words on it, and his whole body trembled. His lips opened and closed, but no words came out. After a long time, his expression changed, and suddenly, as if he had summoned his courage, he stretched out 2 fingers, and suddenly dug his eyes out. Blood splattered, and his 2 eyeballs were dug out by himself. Then, he immediately knelt on the ground and continuously kowtowed to the heavens. "I have dug out my own eyes, and I beg the Master to spare my life." Faintly, it seemed that something had left his body. However, blood still flowed from his eye sockets, and it fell onto the leaf, and the 2 blurred words could be clearly seen. Xiaohao. Back to Suyu. He had successfully bypassed the Thousand Ming Mountain and returned to the territory of the Greater One sect. This trip to the Greater One sect, even if he used the space domain continuously, would take at least a month. "Let's go back to the faction as soon as possible," Suyu said softly. He had been away from the faction for more than a year, and he did not know if the reward he posted had been accepted. Swoosh! The Star River flowed under his feet, and his whole body turned into the Star River, instantly appearing in a faraway place.